So we're calling the joint session of the Select Board and the RMLD Board of Commissioners to order. We are on, in the Select Board meeting room. We're also on YouTube and on RCTV on channel 33 Verizon and 22 Comcast, and our videographer is Rob. And so we're here to interview and vote on an appointment to the vacancy on the Board of Commissioners. I think the way we had scheduled the brief statements, maybe a minute or two from each candidate, alphabetical by last name. So, or there's-
Okay.
Okay, and we call the Select Board.
Commissioners to order too, also at this point. So as Jackie said, basically each commissioner, now this is about my fourth time doing this, so I'm very experienced. Each interviewee will be given a couple minutes, tell us why you want to be on the commission. And then what do we do after that? Usually in the past, we've gone around and got comments from any of the commissioners, any of the board of selectmen. Select persons. I'm sorry, I keep using the old term. I'm too old. What can I say?
Thanks, Phil, and I'll just call the Select Board back into order. So with that, I guess we'll go, like I said, alphabetical by last name. Mr. Corsi?
Voting?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for having me. This should meet the briefing requirement. I'm an engineer. I worked my entire career in the electric utility industry. I worked for General Electric, New England Power, National Grid. I have a strategic and pragmatic problem-solving approach. Play well in the sandbox. I collaborate. Hold engineering degrees from Northeastern University and Wentworth Institute. I'm a United States Navy veteran. More importantly, I'm a twice elected gas and light commissioner in Wakefield. I recently relocated to Reading, where I had to resign my position. I saw the opening, I applied. I enjoyed the work, and that's why I reapplied. My family is in Reading. Amy Branson is here with me tonight, and my grandchildren are here. If appointed, I'll represent the ratepayer and the Light Board's effort to provide safe, reliable, affordable, clean electric power. I feel that I'm able to make an immediate and positive contribution to the board. Thank you for considering me.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we do questions now or let them all speak first?
Why don't we let them all speak first, and then we can ask questions. That's fine.
Thanks, thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me and all of us today to meet with you. First, I just want to acknowledge Mr. Stempeck for his service to RMLD and thank him. Certainly wish him the best as he transitions his responsibilities to a new commissioner. Grateful for the opportunity to share why I think I'd be a strong member of the commissioner board. From an education standpoint, I have a degree from Syracuse University in economics and public policy and an MBA from New York University. I lived with my family in Reading for about 10 years. And in that time, I volunteered in a lot of different organizations in town, within PTO when my children were in elementary school, the Women's League of Reading, where I held the position of treasurer, and I'm currently in my third term as a town meeting member. Professionally, I'm a chief supply chain officer for a Boston-based company that provides government agencies and military branches with supplies and logistics services. Mr. Corsi, thank you for your service. For my more than 2 decades of supply chain experience, my focus has been in procurement and operating cost management. I've saved the companies and clients I've worked with over hundreds of millions of dollars over the course of my career. And the clients I've worked with included public utilities, energy management companies, government agencies, and a variety of other industries. My interest in this role isn't new. I ran for a seat on the RMLD board in 2022. I earned over 1,800 votes from the Reading voters against several formidable opponents, two of whom sit in front of me tonight. But during that time, I really thought and spent a lot of time talking with folks who were voting and who were interested in sharing what it was so important for them. And what I really heard was the focus to clean energy, transition to clean energy, but in a cost-effective way, as well as a very collaborative and positive approach, working with folks who may not agree with your point of view, but focused on getting something done for the town. And I've really built my reputation as throughout my professional career as somebody who really gets stuff done in a collaborative and positive way. So I believe my professional experience would be a valued asset, something different to the board, a diverse perspective and a diverse experience that's not currently on the board. And later, I'm happy to take your questions.
Mr. Porter?
Hi, I'm Ray Porter. I'm an air quality professional for over 30 years. 20 years I've been a resident of Reading. For 10 years I've been a member of the Reading Climate Advisory Committee. As an air quality professional, I've completed many environmental permits for power plants of all kinds. So I'm very familiar with the environmental consequences of those. While I'm not an expert on power distribution systems, I certainly understand the language of power, power distribution, and energy. As a Reading resident, I live in a 1730s Nichols house on Franklin Street. That house has been upgraded. I've worked both as a commuter and as a work-at-home professional. I'm a regular member of the Burbank Y, as Mark knows, in the cycle circuit. And I value the spirit of the town of Reading and the values that it proposes. As a member of the Climate Advisory Committee, I was a charter member of the Climate Committee. I've been on that committee for over 10 years. The committee has done a clean energy survey, or an energy survey of the community. And not only did we collect data from that survey, we also collected comments. And one of the comments we received is that they wish that the people who take positions of authority incorporate the technologies which they recommend. And in doing so, I've converted the 1730s Nichols house to a ground source heat pump system and a solar thermal hot water system. We've also converted a house that my wife and her sisters own down on the Cape to an air-to-air heat pump system. So we've very much a customer of RMLD. We have not gone to voltaic because on a colonial home, I value not putting solar on that, and the roof might not support it. I think you can look at RMLD in one of two ways. You can look at it as an energy broker, someone who negotiates power contracts and delivers service to Reading. Or you can look at RMLD as an energy service company. I think that's the position that I would be like to represent Reading as. Someone who develops local sources of electricity, develops and manages alternative energy, whether that's thermal or electrical, and creates a dynamic power grid. In order to meet its mission of customer service, competitively priced electricity, risk management, system reliability, safety, and business efficiency, I think it needs to take that progressive growth. So if that's a view you share, I welcome to serve in that role. Thank you.
David Zeke, 8 Sanborn Street. My background, I'm retired now, but I have a master's degree in electrical engineering and a master's degree in business administration and a lot of years in engineering management. So I feel like I can jump into the RMLD, pool and swim, so I think that's I'm ready to go on that. I have not only tracked RMLD and what RMLD has been doing for years, as you probably know, but I've also tracked the laws that apply to RMLD, the regulations that apply to RMLD, the statewide assessments comparing RMLD to other multiple municipal light plants, and also I'm also familiar with the electrical grid and its issues and its management system. So I think I've got a great background for all of the things that are gonna come up in RMLD. But the things that are interesting to me, that I think are gonna come up, are some changes to the business. I think one is going to be just this conversion from fossil fuels or carbon fuels to electricity in homes and electric vehicles and so forth. That's going to create new loads on the system, on the electrical system, as well as the distribution problems. I think there are opportunities now for RMLD to broaden its business model. There are things that can be invested in, ways that RMLD can invest that are not available to the business before. There are going to be continuing tightening controls on the clean energy for RMLD, for all MLPs, right? As the state's going to start to put more of the requirements that are put onto other the big distributors onto the municipal light plants. So that's going to be an issue. I also think that just the volatility is going to be an issue. Probably a lot of it due to climate change, but it's going to be a combination of increased demand requiring more capacity in our system with months or quarters or whatever where it's not that bad. And suddenly the peaks and the troughs are going to get to be something that's going to be difficult to manage. Not impossible, but just have to be aware. And so that's why I'm interested in serving on the board.
Open to questions for any of the commissioners or the select board.
Sure.
Anybody have any questions for any of the candidates?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So thank you for applying. I guess I'd love for each of you to answer if you plan to run in April. His appointment is through this
Yeah,
April?
the appointment will go, Mr. Stempeck's term is up in April. So whoever gets this position will have to make a decision whether they want to run for the position, for the 3-year position at that time.
So if each of you could tell us if you plan to run or just plan to be an appointee to get through this transition.
I plan to run. Phil Corsi.
Pam Daskalakis, that would be my plan as well.
Ray Porter, I would plan to run in April.
It depends. If I want to make a difference in the issues that I raised here. If I can, then I want to continue. If that's not an option come April, then I'm not interested in continuing. So it's going to be very much on what kind of input I can make on the board versus just warmth and chair.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this point? I guess at this point then, we'll open up for comments from, so I'll start. Being the senior member in this room. Eldest. Well, that too. So first off, I want to, we should thank Mr. Stempeck, John Stempeck, for his time on the commission. He was very instrumental in actually, not this past general manager, because that's Mr. Talbot should take credit for that. But the commission. I don't think I deserve it, but. The general manager before was Mr. Stempeck was very, very in Baghdad. And he brought a business view to the commission. A business view. So, I think we should thank him for his service as he moves on away from the commission. So I looked at the 4 candidates, all 4 candidates. And I must say that I think this is the 3rd or 4th time I've done this. Every time, all the candidates have been outstanding, and this is no exception. This is no exception. All 4 candidates are outstanding. But I come back to one person in particular, and that's Pam D. I feel that she'd be the best fit with the procurement, from the procurement standpoint here, and I'm intending to vote for Pam. I'm going to say Pam D because I don't know how to pronounce the last name correctly. So I'll just say Pam D is how I'm intending to vote as I go forward. So I'll open it up to others who want to say anything.
Well, I wish I had all of your experience combined and that maybe all 4 of you could have a seat. I just
5 commissioners, why not 9? But that's what it is. And I don't wanna take up a lot of time, cause I know they have a crazy long night, but I do have questions, but do we really have time to go through this?
Up to you, if you want to ask questions.
Okay, quickly then, Mr. Corsi, when's a time when you had to work with others and collaborate on a project that was difficult or challenging?
I would say strategic planning for the goals of the Lakeville Municipal Light Department.
Really?
Many sessions, climate bills being written and lobbied at that time. And it took a lot of work to get to consensus.
I thought you'd say one of your giant engineering projects or
Yeah.
some, okay. And Pam, an example of your supply chain management, just for us to better understand what it's like.
Oh, sure. So supply chain management and what I oversee today includes managing suppliers who provide us with a variety of products, whether it's kind of long-term contract negotiations or just individual spot buys to fill an immediate gap. I have a procurement team as well who does all of the kind of day-to-day transacting and making sure that we get the products into our inventory or to the customer when we need it, and also does negotiations to make sure kind of we manage our inventory levels. We also have fulfillment and distribution, so that's, you know, holding inventory, getting it out, packing, shipping, getting it out to customers, managing the transportation. And then I also have the customer service team, so that's obviously the number one thing is always, are you delivering to your customer on time and what they expect? And so that kind of end touch point to the customer is super critical as well. So that's just kind of a summary of what supply chain management in my world
Okay,
means.
because I don't know that. Ray, for air quality, what if you were to educate me, the one thing that would be the best impact on our environment to improve our air quality, what would that be?
RMLD is facing a very large challenge of converting from oil and gas to electricity. And that impact will have a tremendous impact on carbon footprint and air quality together. Right now, about half of our inventory is oil-fired home heating. And so being able to transition that to electricity will be a huge impact on air quality. So making that transition, understanding that transition, communicating that transition to the community is the big challenge ahead.
And David Zieg, I've known you the longest and you've done so many big projects for our town. Why have you never run before for RMLD commissioner?
Why did what?
Why have you not run before? As a double E and your interests and
Well, because I was on the climate advisory committee, and I think that was a full-time job for me. And I
It
didn't
is.
want to, I didn't want to like try to cross-fertilize what RMLD was doing with what the climate advisory committee was doing. And although we were doing some very synergistic things, I think they were separate. Working for the town is a little different from working for the community RMLD network.
it is different. That's it, that's all I have.
We're back to, any other further questions, or are we back to statements by anybody? Okay. Yeah, you ready for,
Are we each making a little bit of a statement, or are we just going to?
it's up to you. I mean, right now, if you wanna make a statement, we now to make the statement. If you wanna make a statement before we take any kind of vote.
Sure, I'll just, the two sentences. First of all, Dave Talbot, I'm a member of the Youth Board for 10 years. Thank all four of you very much for applying, and also thank Commissioner Stenbeck for his service. For different reasons, all four of you, bring a lot of strengths to the board. And I think personally I value, there's people who've been and serving in things in the town of Reading for many years, so that for me, it helps to know the town and be on town meeting and things for a long time to be acquainted with Reading. I think we also need to know that somebody's making a commitment to run in April. Otherwise, why do this? We could make do for 6 months, or it'll be about 6 or 7 meetings, right, between now and the election. And although we all wish we could get something done on a board in 6 months, it's often, it's hard to do that. I think we've not had a I hope all three of you and all four of you indeed stay involved. I really like the idea of the procurement experience that Pam brings. It's a new expertise on the board that we haven't had before, and so I will be supporting Pam in this vote. Thank you.
So, if I could, again, I'm just gonna ditto what everybody said, and I think it's an honor to have people come in. I know when I came in here and, it's unnerving to run and it's difficult and it's courageous from everybody, so and to do what you're doing right now is also truly a stand-up thing. I value experience, all types of experience from everybody here, and I think that, right now, it is a very, very dynamic time in the electric industry, and having some background in that is very, very valuable. It just so you can comprehend, we have goals, and goals are very, they're great to have, but we have to meet them in a practical and economical manner. So I think to approach a candidate in that manner, in your selection is, if you can consider that.
I just wanted to clarify also one quick thing. Phil said, giving me credit for Greg being hired. I just want to say, we all hired Greg, and Bob and I sat on the selection committee along with a member of the CAB. So
Yes.
I don't deserve that credit, but thanks, Phil.
You did a great stand job without spending any money.
That's true. Tom does not.
Oh, yeah, this is an unpaid position, by the way.
Yeah, did you know that?
Yeah, exactly.
They were our subcommittee and spent dozens, uncountable hours of their own time reviewing resumes and coming up with valuable questions and coordinating calls, and had we paid them, we couldn't have afforded them.
By the way, I just want to throw in Peabody, the utility commissioners get health benefits paid for by the town. So as you're revising the charter, this is a joke. This is me joking. Do not want that.
It's just not on the agenda, but
Okay.
but it could be on another agenda.
I think Chris has his hand up.
Okay, yeah, Chris, no, you go.
Go.
Very impressive resumes, and I agree. I don't know if Marlena said it or Mr. Talbot said it, but yeah, it'd be nice to have all four of you, but this is an appointment. And I'm glad that three of you answered. You're wholeheartedly run. I know things can change, but you're making that commitment now. And I think where Phil has been on a light board, that brings a lot of experience, maybe in a different state. I would maybe think a little bit differently, but Wakefield's our neighbor. We talk to Wakefield a lot, town managers, probably superintendents and other boards and committees, so I'll be supporting Phil, just I think he has the right experience that will jump right in. Not that the other three aren't qualified, but I think for this appointment period, I think Phil will be an asset to the board.
Thanks, Jackie. And thank you all for coming. I know it's not easy to get up there and speak, and it's definitely I appreciate it. I kind of let everybody speak first, other than Mark and Karen and Jackie, only because for me, I think what we've done in the past is discuss at one meeting and then vote in the next. I'm not sure why we're deviating from that in this instance, because this is one of the more important votes. All of them are obviously important, but this isn't the run-of-the-mill. This is like bypassing 20,000 people voting for somebody in the blink of an eye. I think that we should, continue the discussion here, but then be voting at the next meeting instead. And to add to that, earlier, I got a message before I came in here, who are the candidates that, you're interviewing, et cetera. And I was like, on the website, it's on the packet. And it's not on the website, and it's not in the packet. So from a transparency standpoint, we can't be doing that. So if it truly isn't on our website or RMLD's, then I don't think we should be voting at all regardless. But that's not to say that we can't just vote at the next meeting, taking into account everything that everyone's already said. You know what I mean? We don't have to have them come back, I don't think. I think everyone presented their own case. I have a toss-up between two individuals and, that's just kind of where I'm sitting at now. But I don't feel comfortable voting tonight. So thanks.
Just to clarify, I'm on the town website and there is an RMLD Board of Commissioners meeting listed at 6 p.m. With the 4 candidates' names. But point taken, I don't know that the 4 resumes were on the agenda. So maybe we can put a pin in that and come back to it after the other board members have spoken. Any Mark or Karen? Mark.
Please, thank you.
Yeah.
So first, thank you all for coming in. I have the pleasure to know 3 of you to varying extents, and Mr. Corsi, I look forward to meeting you and talking with you in the future as well. I think that the role here is a very dynamic one, and the RMLD obviously is a very important and major asset to the town of Reading. It's going through a lot of dynamic change right now and needs to. And actually, I know the commissioner is, the general manager as well. Sorry, I didn't mean to slight you, Greg. I think that a lot of what's going on is going to come down to managing supply and demand, to be clear, but supply in a really big way. And I've gotten to know Pam over the last several months, first as a candidate and running for the position, which I think, to the point everyone's brought up, takes guts, among other things, to be willing to do, to put yourself out there, and came very, very close. And then I've had a chance to talk in train rides as it's turned out a little bit, which was unexpected. But I think that what we're looking for very much relates to the experience that Pam brings. And I think that her experience in the town meeting member, as a resident of the town, stepping up to run for this position, I think that's exactly right. I also find this to be really hard, and I think everyone said this also. We have great candidates. 3 folks who I already know have made incredible contributions to the town, and I look forward to you continuing to make those contributions regardless of the outcome here. But I think Pam brings the right skill set to what we're doing here, and I will be supporting her. Thanks.
Karen.
Thank you. I appreciate all the comments from the commissioners and other select board members, thank you. And I just wanted to add my thank you for coming forward for this. This is so important with the peril that our climate is demonstrating every day. And also, it's been my great pleasure to work with at least 2 of you on the Climate Advisory Committee. David, I did talk to John Stempeck this week to thank him as well for his service. And I also wanted to thank you as well publicly for your many, many years in the Climate Advisory Committee and the great work that we've been to collaborate with the Board of Commissioners over the past few years. I've been an RMLD liaison for 2 general managers for about 5 years now in a financial FinCom capacity as well as a select board member capacity. So certainly echo your points. This is a very dynamic time, and I thank you for applying, and I know we only have 1 opening tonight, but there will be others, and it's amazing to be reminded of the caliber of the volunteers we have willing to step up for Reading, so thank you.
And just for my part, I know we have, these are big shoes to fill and really impressive and varied resumes from all 4 of you, so thank you for stepping up. I don't really view this as bypassing the voters so much as doing our duty to make an appointment of a vacancy, and as someone noted, it's a rather short term, so I think it's a fair question that Mr. Bacci asked about your thoughts on running for the seat, for the vacancy. I think with all that in mind, I'd like to see this move forward tonight, but we can talk about that, about Mr. Haley's suggestion. But I think just given these 4 resumes, having someone with a good varied experience and skill set on supply chain issues, and bringing that different perspective into the board could be very helpful for this appointment. So if there's consensus to move forward tonight, I plan to support Ms. Daskalakis.
So let me just say, in like I said, I've done this maybe 3 or 4 times. We've always voted on the night. we've not postponed it to another time. Because, we wanted to get that person on board and get up to speed. I mean, Bob can surely tell you, when he came on the board, even though he works in the industry, there was a lot to learn. There was a lot to learn, and the sooner that person can get on the board, the sooner they can learn and go forward.
And just to add to that, we have a meeting on Thursday night, and then typically we don't have a meeting in August, so it would be not until late September that we'd have that actually hand, at the meeting, learning how things go. So,
Chris, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand all that, and I know that I'm being the skunk at the party in this kind of scenario, which, I don't want to be, especially with everyone here. But, I mean, I'm on here now, and it's not under the RMLD thing, so I'm not sure where you were looking on it. So if it truly wasn't advertised correctly, then,
It's on the calendar on the front of the webpage.
yeah, but like I'm on the RMLD 6 o'clock and the select board at 6 o'clock in
Right,
both those
so we're posted.
PDFs. No, I understand that, but the individuals aren't mentioned there at all. So the public had no way of knowing who it was. I'm just saying this is my opinion. But
Well, then as a compromise, I think with the 48-hour rule, could we get it posted first thing in the morning, and would that qualify for, no, it'd be,
So it's gonna be posted in our website, but if you recall, I shared the first 3 applicants with the board, I wanna say 2 weeks ago, I think on both boards. And we received 1 more applicant, I think, last week. The deadline for applicants was yesterday at 5:30 p.m. And that's the reason why it's not on the website, and it's not posted. Caitlin emailed the packet yesterday to I think to both boards at 5:35, right? I mean, so the reason why it's not on the website is that the application deadline was yesterday at 5:30 p.m. So when the meeting was advertised for and posted, it was last week on Wednesday, right? So we didn't know, more applications were gonna come. And we are following the way that things had been done before. I specifically looked at the last 2 appointments, which were actually on the school committee. I pulled the minutes and we were just trying to mirror the process on that.
no, I agree that we were inundated with stuff along this entire process. I'm not discounting that at all. Staff and everybody did an incredible job giving us updates all the time. I completely agree with that. I just think from a transparency standpoint of it not being there, I understand it's going up now, it doesn't sit right with me. And that is all I'm saying. But yes, to the other mention that you brought up, Phil, I know maybe RMLD has done it, or this kind of appointment has been done like that, but for the last year or 2, the select board's been discussing one day and then voting the next meeting. That's just how that portion has been done. That doesn't mean that it can't change now, because it seems as if it's 1 to 9, but that's fine with me. It's how it goes.
I mean, I would like to move forward and talk. I mean, I just want to get the person on board and get them going at this point. I understand your concern, but I just think we need to move forward and get, if we delay now, even if you go, Marlene is 48 hours, then that puts it beyond the next meeting, and the next meeting is September. So it's just, we need to get this appointment done tonight. All truthfulness at this point. Now, clearly, I think from all of us what said, I'm counting noses, and I think the noses are, in favor of one person here. Let's be honest.
there's a greater good to voting tonight.
Yeah.
After hearing your argument.
Yeah.
I see your point.
So,
The packet is now on our website, sorry, real time, on the calendar on the town site.
Do I understand correctly that the 3 candidates were mentioned at the last select board meeting? The names of the 3 candidates, is that what you said?
no.
She said sent to both boards.
Okay.
Well, anyway, I would like to call for a vote at this point. I'd like to move forward with a vote at this point, so I think,
Do we need a motion or chairs?
I think it's just, I think we just do a vote at this point. I think each of us has a sense of opinion, so if you, Christoph, I'd like somebody to nominate all four candidates. So why don't you nominate all four candidates and we can go in alphabetical order on the vote,
I'll nominate Phil R. Corsi.
okay? Good, next one,
Nominate Pam Daskalakis.
next
Nominate
one,
Ray Porter.
and then I will nominate David Zeke, so all four candidates are. I will take them in the order of, the vote will go in order of the last names. So all in favor of Philip Corsi, please raise your right hand.
We actually need to do a roll call. Town
I would-
council.
Okay, I'm more than happy to do a roll call. Okay, if you feel that it's necessary to do a roll call, I'd be happy to do a roll call.
Yeah.
So, again, since I'm the most senior member in this room, and again, also the oldest,
willing to
if somebody
admit it.
reminds me, again, my vote is for Pam D at this point. So, Dave,
I vote for Pam Daskalakis also.
I vote for Pam Daskalakis.
I vote for Phil Corsi.
okay,
I vote for Phil. I abstain.
I'd like to vote for David Z.
I'd like to vote for Pam.
all right. So the vote being 5, who'd you vote for, Karen? I didn't quite. David Zeke, okay. So the vote being 5 for Pam, 2 for Philip, 1 for David. Pam is vote for fill the position. So I think you need to go and sign in with the town clerk.
Actually, there's one more step. So I think the vote's been taken. I think now we actually have to have a motion and then vote on the motion.
I have a
to
motion.
appoint. And then once that is done,
All right,
then you
I'll
can
be
move to
going
the other
So
one.
the motion should be,
I have a motion.
oh, you got a motion?
I
Okay.
got a motion.
Yeah, go ahead, read it.
Move to appoint Pam Daskalakis to the vacant seat of the RMLD Board of Commissioners in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 11, GLC 41, funny sign 11, until the next annual election or until another is qualified.
Second,
We had to get the lawyers involved somehow. All right, is that seconded?
I seconded.
Yeah.
Okay. You moved and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your.
Roll call.
Roll call again. Ms. Pacino, aye?
Mr. Golder, aye.
Mr. Talbot, aye.
Marlena Beta, aye.
I abstain.
Mark Doxer, aye.
Karen Herrick, aye.
Jackie McCarthy, aye.
Okay, very good. Listen, everybody the other 3 people, understand that, please stay involved. There will probably be vacancies coming up soon. Put it that way.
Thank you, everybody, very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Pam.
All right, move to adjourn the commission meeting.
Oh, yes, move to adjourn. You have it.
Commission, all those in favor?
Second, all in favor? Opposed, 5-0. We adjourn till 7. Calling the July 18th, 2023 Select Board meeting to order. We're here in the Select Board room. We're also on RCTV channels 33 Verizon and 22 Comcast, and we're also on YouTube. So just a preview of the agenda. We're going to take things a little bit out of order tonight if the other board members are okay with it. We'll do public comment, and then we'll have a presentation on from Victor, the assessor, on fiscal year 25 tax rates. Then we'll go back to the agenda order with select board liaison and town manager reports. We'll then hear from Reading resident and RMHS alum Autumn Hendrickson on her book research, which we're looking forward to hearing about. Then we'll have a discussion of the process for a special committee for charter review, which is coming up soon. We'll have at 8:20 p.m. A demo of the construction tracker, which Fidel will lead us through. We've got a vote at 8:40 to approve a driveway width waiver for 91 Green Street. We will discuss the upcoming public forum on a dog park and finalize with future agendas and meeting minutes. And so just as a reminder for public comment, if you could please state your name and address and try to keep your comments to 2 minutes, and please address the chair. I'll also just say as we're starting, it's summer, so I hope everyone's had a chance or will have a chance to take some time and enjoy summer. We're seeing new and renewed volunteers from our appointments last month, already doing some important work here this month. So thank you to those volunteers across our boards and committees. So with that, is there anyone in the room who would like to make some public comment? Yes.
Good evening, I'm John.
Please come up here, John.
Yeah.
Where do you want me? How close?
At the podium.
Oh, the podium, got it. The mic there I need to talk into. I'm John Levitt from 23 Mineral Street. Thank you for this opportunity. I'd like to make a few comments relative to the presentation I know you're going to hear momentarily from the assessor about property tax rates and property values. And as input to your decision, I know you're going to be making about the property tax rates for 2024. Using the data from our assessor's presentation last year, although the calculations of percentages are mine, so if there's any mistakes, they're mine. The average commercial tax bill in Reading has gone up 12.6% in the last 12 years, from 2011 to 2023. The average residential tax bill went up 58.8%. That doesn't seem fair to me. And even last year, when you increased the split rate to 1.05, the residential rate went up 3.6, or the average residential bill went up 3.6%, and the median commercial tax bill went 0.5%. That doesn't even seem fair to me. So as a starting point in terms of fairness, I would encourage you to adjust that split so that the percentage increase in the bills for the average residential and the average commercial property at a minimum are the same. I would also encourage you to go back and look historically at last year and the years before and perhaps correct some of the, what I think is an inequity that's happened over that time. Also, the argument you often hear is that if we raise the rate on commercial property, the commercial interest businesses will leave town. That really simply doesn't hold water. If you look at all the contiguous towns, they have higher property tax rates for commercial than we do in Reading. 5.9% in one community, 37% in another, 60 to 70% in a number of them, and over 100% in one community. So all those commercial tax rates in the surrounding towns are higher. Also, just one note, when a business's tax bill goes up, that's an expense against the business. It's deducted from their revenue in calculating their taxable income. So the actual impact on a business is about roughly 2/3 in terms of the actual impact in terms of the dollar cost. Whereas to a homeowner, they're absorbing all of that cost. Very few homeowners now in Reading can do itemized deductions because of the way the tax laws have changed over the last few years. So the residential property owner is bearing the full brunt of that. Just in conclusion, I'd like to note that Prop 2.5 was passed to prevent dramatic property tax increases for residential homeowners, in part to allow seniors, so that seniors weren't chased out of their homes by increasing property taxes. Unfortunately, in Reading, we failed to take advantage of the split in the tax rate to keep the tax rates lower for seniors. I know you've done many other wonderful things to help seniors stay in their homes and stay in Reading. This is another one I think you can do that would be helpful as well. I will send you a 2-page letter by email or memo by email that highlights this point, has a couple charts in it that lays out some of the details that I hope will be helpful. I'm happy to take questions after it by email or any point if you like. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comment in the room? Doesn't look like it. So Caitlin, is there anyone joining us remotely who would like to comment?
There's no one here at the moment.
Okay. Thank you. So with the consensus and approval of the board, we'll move on to Victor and his presentation.
Good evening, folks. Victor Santinello. What do I do here? I'm the assessor.
Which town am I in?
What
Where
town
am I?
All right. A couple of years ago, I was approached, hey, can we have a meeting and, over the summer, just to start getting our heads in the game for what occurs at our classification meeting in October. So July, we're 3 months away, still plenty of time. But this is meant to be like a quick hit and run, a reminder. And I used the last complete year's data, which was fiscal '23. We'll have the same options available for '24, but the numbers will be a little bit different once I'm done producing values and having them approved by the State Department of Revenue. But basically, if you go to the next page, this is a recap of options that I present at classification. And these numbers I try to include at the top what the average single-family tax bill is. Average single-family value, $773,300, and the median commercial value. As you know, I tend to measure things against the median commercial value because the average commercial value is close to $2 million. And a small shop isn't $2 million. It overstates any taxes that the reasonable small business will be able to anticipate. So we focus on the median, and that for '23 was a little over $792,000. At a single tax rate, the rates are a little bit different because I've also factored into the cost of senior tax relief. So that's why you have at a single tax rate, a slightly higher residential bill than you would commercial bill, at a higher residential rate than commercial rate. But when you get down to like 1.02, okay, the residential rate drops down, commercial rate goes up, and you see what the anticipated taxes were. We selected a factor of 1.05. We had some vigorous discussion on this about maybe entertaining a plan to slowly and cautiously look to shift taxes. And before we do anything, I try to present you with what that would look like. Savings to the average single-family taxpayer, and more importantly, the burden that's passed along to a small business owner. The next few pages are taking this out to our full shift capacity at 1.5. Mostly, I just put that in there so you'll have an idea of how much you save at each shift point and how much is shifted to the commercial class of property. So if you go 1, 2, 3, there we go, that's the one I'm looking for. To the last page, you'll see if we were at a 1.5 shift rate for fiscal 2023, the average single-family homeowner would see a savings of $331. But conversely, you would see the CIP difference at about $4,800 more of a tax bill. Those are just the realities that are born through the numbers. And again, the measurements I did were against the 1.02 shift because that's what we've done historically for the past several years prior to shifting to 1.05. The next page shows us what surrounding communities do. And you can see Linfield there at their max capacity. It doesn't say 1.05 because their assessor there is terrible.
You figure it out?
He
Oh my
couldn't
gosh.
split that atom to get
So
the other
unprofessional.
.000.
The street numbering issue.
North Reading, hanging in there. No shift whatsoever. Never, ever gonna do it. Then you have Reading creeping up at 1.05, and then everybody else maximum shift at 1.75. Below that is a list of the number of single-family parcels, the average single-family values in those communities for fiscal '23, and the average single-family tax bill. And you'll see that Reading comes in, these were almost in order. Comes in at that short list, the third highest tax bill. We flip to the next page. This is historically what Reading has done and the effect on the tax rate. We see all no shifts until this guy comes up with a plan supported by you folks to help seniors. And then we start shifting things a little bit to share it and absorb it into the tax burden for everyone. And we see the effects of that shifting as we go with a little bit higher commercial rate than a residential rate. And the next page shows us what some of our peers do. When I first started here, I think it was Peter, gave me a list. Here's communities that we compare ourselves to. I'm telling you, there's like 60 communities on that list. I don't mind updating it, but are we really comparable on some of the other lists like Marshfield? Maybe it's time I whittle down some of that list. But these are what a committee years ago in Reading decided were comparable communities. And it shows you what their shift capacities are and what they actually do for a shift. Arlington doesn't shift, Belmont doesn't shift, and Concord doesn't shift, but I think they have a $1.2 million average single-family value over there, and it seems like they have plenty of money, so. And a bunch of communities at the bottom don't shift. Your Winchester, Winthrop, and I think I made an error in Wilmington. Wilmington shifts. Sorry about that, I fat fingered it. Then, someone had asked me about Linfield. Linfield always, they never really split the tax rate. And, where are they at now? Well, I had to go back 20 years to figure out that's the last time they had a single tax rate. Then they started with the car dealerships up there. They decided to say, okay, we'll try to keep any tax increases as level as we can, as the gentleman who spoke before me. Trying to mitigate the impact of rapidly rising residential values and relatively stagnant commercial values. Some communities try to alleviate that and try to keep it fairly distributed through the shift. But as you can see, they, went from 2004, 6% shift. And then they hovered between like 6 and 11% up until 2014. Then what came to town?
Marketplace.
Yes. Current value, 258 million. No appeal at the appellate tax board, thank you very much. My biggest parcel I've ever valued.
Good job.
Then they tried to keep pace again, but also early, 2010s, residential values exploding, commercial values stagnating, and they have this new place coming on the books that's largely commercial. So they tried to capitalize again on keeping the increases between residential and commercial fairly similar. But even with that added capacity that Marketplace brought, it only took them 7 or 8 years to achieve the maximum shift. So being at the maximum shift means we have no more options over there to try to level the playing field. It is what it is now. And on the last page is just a little summation. Reading has only a slight shift to accommodate the Reading Senior Discount Program. With the exception of North Reading and Reading, surrounding communities shifted to their maximum allowable limit. Most common reasons, communities will shift the tax burden to afford residential taxpayers the lowest possible share of the tax burden. That was the best answer to a question we had from the city council in Chelsea. An old-time assessor who was on the city council, and he would stand up, Mr. Assessor, if we select these options, are we affording residential taxpayers the lowest possible share of the tax burden? Knocking on the table and all old-timey stuff. Stand up and say, yes, sir. And that was it. That was good enough for them. The other reason is to equalize the disparity of significantly rising residential property values in a relatively flat commercial industrial sector. And any town considering a CIP shift should do exactly what we're doing. Meet early, get it into your heads, think about it. Think about the benefits to residential, the cost to commercial, because you have to weigh both sides, and move forward slowly with a plan. Try to figure out what kind of timeline we want to be on. I mean, if I look at, one of the things I'll add to my classification hearing, if we wanted to try to engage with what a tax increase looked like even on both sides, I'll provide you with that number. It may come at a split of 1.2. I won't know until we get to that point. But I will let you know what it is, so we'll look at that, because we had this conversation here. A gentleman came out to point out some very valuable information to us. You know, something over 50% past bunch of years residential tax increase, and a paltry, what was it, 12.6% increase on the commercial. So this presentation is meant to be food for thought, something to reflect on, something to keep handy. And as always, right now, ask me any questions you have, email me any questions. I'm happy to look at things any way that you would like me to look at them.
Madam Chair? Yeah. Thank you for going back 20 years in Linfield. That must have been fun. Appreciate that extra work.
Victor, on your chart called Shifting the Tax Rate Rating that showed 1.02, 1.05, 1.1, 1.2, 3, 4, 5. That's back to your initial comment, right? That was saying that was based on 1 year back. I'm trying to, because it would imply we're at 1.02 if I'm reading it correctly.
This information is based on fiscal year 23, our last complete fiscal year. And in fiscal year 22, and actually from 18 to 22, we had about a 1.02 split.
Right.
So I would consider that to be our last base point. That's why it's highlighted there. And for 23, we went from the usual 1.02 to 1.05.
So maybe I'll catch you offline. I'm not understanding your chart, which seems to say we're still at 1.02. This is,
I have both highlighted.
this is the one I'm looking at.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think what Victor is saying is that we don't have data yet to compare what the increase will be for FY '25. So he's comparing it based on the last complete years, because obviously we're closing the year now, right? You'll see this chart with last year's full data in October.
I tried to clear it up at the bottom by saying residential and CIP tax amount differences calculated against a 1.02 shift. I use that as our last standard. That's why the first line begins at 1.02.
When we started the shift.
Exactly.
We started the shift, but last year we actually were at 1.05.
And I'm showing you the difference between what
so
it
that-
would have been at the standard 102
Got it.
to what we did from 105.
Okay, so but I guess from a baseline point of view, we're now at 105. That was the last year that we did 105.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Victor, you're always so animated, no one can say that you're not.
Too much caffeine.
But I have a couple of questions for Fidel first, if I could. How much in the split tax rate for that average commercial property is the trash pickup? What is their portion in that? How much are the businesses paying to have that done?
I think that's a catch me question.
It is, Fidel. The answer to that is they don't. And I'm paying taxes and having my trash hopefully picked up on time, you know. It's been a little spotty lately. So my follow-up to that would be the potential new Killam School and whatnot. How much of the businesses in town for the owners and such, are their kids gonna be able to go to Killam?
I think it depends on the business. I don't know. I'm not sure.
That had to be a rhetorical question, right?
Correct. It's once again, their kids aren't gonna be going to Killam. Their kids are gonna be going to North Reading or Wilmington or wherever else that they're living, yet they're paying taxes in Reading. I just don't think that people in general truly understand what a small business owner does on a day-to-day basis. And that's why, like, when I see these shifting rates and everything like that, unless you are truly a small business owner, you are not in this position to end up seeing the insurmountable amount of taxes that you're paying other than a 1.02, 1.05 kind of shift that's in there. If I decided to take my business to North Reading that you have up there, their shift rate is what? It's stagnant at one?
One.
Correct. There's no shift there. So in taking my business to North Reading, out of Reading, I'm taking close to a dozen vehicles that are registered to my business in Reading, to North Reading. That is thousands upon thousands of dollars that I'm taking elsewhere. That's not being appropriated to what I'm actually paying in taxes. Because I'd have to look again. I will for the follow-up meetings and whatnot. But I'd have to guess that I'm paying over, $10,000 in excise tax to the town of Reading for having my vehicles registered here. That's not accounted into any of these numbers that are up there at all. So I just think that people have to think, because I will once again say the quiet part out loud. We already know where this is headed going forward, voting in the future. I'm just hoping that perhaps we can turn things around now going forward, because I don't want it to continue down this path. I understand why it's being done, but for me, I bought my house for $800,000 in Reading. Currently, I can sell it for $1.1 million. That means I'm getting $300,000, and how much taxes have I paid since my house went up over the course of 3 or 4 years? Nowhere close to $300,000. That's the benefit that I'm getting by living in Reading, Massachusetts, with good schools, a safe community, et cetera, that you can't quantify in numbers that are up there in general. But I go ahead and move my business out of here, you're getting nothing. Zippity-doo-dah. So I still can't believe this is even a discussion. So that's all I got.
Yeah, I think everyone who knows me knows where I stand on this, but just to see the shift in the tax rate from 1.02 to 1.5, I know we're not gonna do that all at once. But those numbers just make me sick, and those are the numbers now in 2023. A savings of $330 versus an increase of almost $5,000. So, and like Chris said, a lot of benefits to owning a home, not so many benefits to owning a business. A lot of headaches when we make those choices. I don't want anyone to feel bad for me or Chris or anyone else who owns a business. But from COVID to present day, it's been a you-know-what show. And I'm always gonna advocate for the small business owners. I'm a resident, I own a property in Reading. I don't want my taxes to go up, just like anyone else does, but we need services, we have to pay for our schools, but you can't compare the increase in the value we get from our homes to owning a business, even if you can sell it or sell it for a profit. A lot of businesses have been closing during COVID, not selling. So, and we have to keep that in mind. You know, Reading's in a good position right now. We have some empty storefronts. We're gonna have a few more when these other buildings go up. Hopefully they'll get filled. But I just, you know, come October, I wanna stay at 1.05, obviously. I don't wanna see any increases. So we're still dealing with so much supply chain, labor shortage, costs keep going up. And they say inflation's going down the news, not for us, not for supplies, not for help. Keep going up. $15 an hour for minimum wage, people are already pushing, Senator Lewis already pushing $20 an hour. What do you think it's gonna do to us? So, you know, I know we're not gonna go backwards, but October, you know, keep it the same. We have to get out of the storm that we're in for the small business owners. We gotta try to treat them right. So, I'm gonna say the same thing in October, but you gotta preview.
So a question for Victor and then a question for Fidel. So Victor, with the peer communities, I believe it's on page 99 of our packet, starts with Arlington, goes to Winthrop. Is that max, I'm just curious about some of the communities that have an even bigger max shift of 1.75. Is that like based on their charter, based on like state, you know, some sort of classification from the state?
175 would be the max.
Right.
The max was determined when shifting came about as part of the classification amendment in 1981.
Okay.
And it was fixed based upon your commercial percentage versus residential. So for example, Wakefield back in the day was probably 35% commercial.
Yeah.
And, 65% residential.
Okay.
So they had extra capacity to shift, whereas places like Reading, Melrose, what have you, still had relatively small commercial.
Okay. And then for Fidel, just a question for kind of next steps. I know we said we're gonna be voting on this in October, but is there, I guess, a public hearing to discuss and a public hearing to vote? Kind of
That's right.
Thought?
So we looking back at last year, essentially, Victor comes, and does this thing again, but with updated numbers. In October, we like to ask the board to set the rate by the end of October. I think that's right.
Typically, we're in by last week of October at a public hearing. You know, we have the packet well in advance and always available to answer any questions beforehand. Look at anything that you might like, even if I don't have it in the material, I would get it to you all. And that technically is a public hearing where you're gonna choose the factor that will ultimately determine what the tax rates will be.
Thanks. Mark?
Thank you, Jackie. So just to walk through just for a second, this is in terms of when we started shifting from 1.0. I think it goes to 2019 as the first year. Well, other than for the circuit breaker, right? So the first 1.02, I think, is 2019. So my point here is that this is really year 6 of our discussion about shifting tax rates. So as we think about kind of progress and doing it in a methodical fashion, I think we've already demonstrated pretty well that that's what we're doing, is thinking about it that way. Second is that in thinking about, how do we think about residential concerns, business concerns, and other activities, the community is going to be facing additional taxes in the form of a new Killam school, with the opportunity to invest that way. Opportunity to invest probably in a new senior/community center, and perhaps some other things also. So I think that we also know that coming down the road, particularly for residents, which is 92%, 91% of the community, there are some big things coming down the road also. I think it's really important that we be a bit more equitable in shifting further and kind of continuing the progress that we're making here, realizing that as a community, we've decided the services that we want, and we have to pay for them. There are some services that different parts of the community use. Reading, I think, is one of perhaps not so many communities that plows the downtown, as an example. I'm sure there are others, I don't mean that to be an exhaustive list. But what we do is we try to serve our community as best we can and trying to figure out how to do that. I think we've demonstrated really good stewardship and leadership and thinking about how to do it. And I think that we need to kind of continue that path in a methodical fashion in going through it. And fully appreciate that it is not easy to be a business. For many people in this community, it's not easy to afford the taxes in the town of Reading. And there's not a whole lot that we can do about that other than with some adjustments that we do in the shift here. So I know that this is an ongoing discussion and it's great. I think it's an important discussion that we have. But I think we just need to make sure we're thinking about both sides of the coin always as we do. Thank you.
Thank you for preparing all this and giving us this midsummer hit and run, you called it. I very much appreciate it. You know, as the Killam School Building Committee gets up and running, you're eloquent as usual, and I was thinking, you're exactly right. We're fortunate that we're still a few years out before we need to ask the voters to consider approving and taking on some debt to fund this school. So we as a body have an opportunity to really think about where could we be with this shift before we have to ask the voters? What relief can we give the residents before we need to ask them to do the right thing for the students? So that's a community discussion that we need to have. And thank you for pointing out as well that business expenses, or as our public speaker earlier, reminding us all that business expenses are always deductible. So these impacts in any shift are not, you know, probably maybe our presentation in September, October needs to sort of reflect that, like one more column showing actual impact that might help folks adjust better. And certainly the public speaker's comment, Mr. Lippert, it was, I'm also a small business owner, so I understand every expense counts, and but I was not aware of the shrinking number of persons who are able to take itemized deductions. Because as a small person, you can always itemize deductions and you have that flexibility. So thank you both for reminding us.
Thank you, Victor. To be continued. We'll see you in a couple of months and
Email me with anything you have, anytime, anything tax related, I drop everything to get some.
Thank you.
I think we gotta get a shirt for Victor, you see that?
Yeah. Come on, you can't just video with a W on.
First, before we even.
Maybe we'll just get a patch with an R that goes over the W.
Okay, moving on, Autumn, if you'd like to come up and Autumn Hendrickson is here to give us an update on her research. You know, many of us have enjoyed hearing Autumn's work at Memorial Day ceremonies and reading about it on social media. So thanks for coming and look forward to hearing.
Yeah, I thought they might be interesting, even though I've been told that they don't make any sense to anyone but me. But I can pass this around if you guys want. These are the notes that I used while I was on my trip to the National Archives of St. Louis, so you can see all of my frantic notes and whatnot. Would you guys like me to pass this around, or not so much, or? Sure. Okay, there's 2 packets. You can just flip through them at your own leisure. I can explain it if you're curious about what something means, but So I'm Autumn Hendrickson, as many of you know. For the past 3 or so years, I've been working on a book about the men and women from Reading and North Reading that served in the Second World War. Whether they were on the front lines on a battlefield, they were getting those bullets up to the guys on the front lines, or they were on the home front dealing with the very real impacts of of losing someone or of seeing your children or your siblings or your spouses going off far from home, in some cases not coming back for years, and then coming back to a town that probably looked very different from the one that they left, because the war certainly touched this community. Maybe not in a super physical way, but definitely in a way. And so I just recently returned from a trip to the National Archives at St. Louis, which is home to the National Personnel Records Center, as well as the entire collection of unit morning reports for not just World War II. I believe they hold the reports for Korea and Vietnam as well. In the packet, there should be photos for you of what a morning report looks like. It's essentially an exclusive style roster, meaning you only show up on them if something happens to you. So if you're promoted, demoted, if you join the unit, you leave the unit, you go missing, you go AWOL, or you're killed or wounded, that's when you show up. So that's incredibly helpful if you want to know when someone joined a unit. For example, this is a very good example, I guess. There's one man in particular from this town, Robert Dexter Jones. He was a member of, I believe, the 276th Infantry Regiment of the 70th Infantry Division. They fought a very hard battle in a community called Wingen-sur-Moder in France. And like the French-German border, I believe, in January 1945. I wrote one of my most detailed articles for the newspaper about him in that battle. He wasn't there. He wasn't there. He joined the unit 2 months later. I had no way of knowing that. I had no way of knowing that. I didn't have the unit morning reports. But that's the difference that a morning report makes. Just a day can make a difference, right? Like, we have a few individuals from this community in North Reading, one in particular, Frederick Clark, the youngest man from our two communities to be killed in action. He joined the unit that he was killed from about 6 days before he was killed. That's often, I often find that when they're killed, captured, or wounded, it's best to assume they joined a few days before, because that was the most common thing to have happen. The longer you're in combat, the more likely you are to live, even though they wouldn't tell you that. So just a day makes a difference, right? A unit can get absolutely annihilated. We have one individual, Edwin Sanborn, who thanks to the morning reports that I was able to go through, I know that he joined Company E, 26th Infantry Regiment, 1st Division, 5 days before he was captured. When he was captured, the morning reports say, we lost contact with the entire company. They were gone. About 100 guys went missing from the company on November 29th. If you joined December 2nd, that's just a few days later, but you're a replacement. You're very obviously a replacement for 100 guys who have gone missing. You weren't there, for the 2 days of fighting or so that they were in that led up to you going there. So this is incredibly important. It helps me understand the nature of someone's service and why they may have been where they were or why they weren't somewhere. Our community in particular got very lucky. A lot of our men were severely wounded or lightly wounded right before the Battle of the Hürtgen Forest in the fall of 1944. We probably would have lost some if they hadn't, because they got pulled off the line right before their unit got destroyed. So that's important, because that means I might not be telling the story of the Hürtgen Forest in the same way as I am now that I know that a lot of our guys were either there right at the beginning, got captured right in the middle of it, or just simply weren't there. So that's what those reports help with a lot. I also was lucky enough to drag my boyfriend along with me to the National Archives, and he scanned, I think he said he must have scanned thousands of pieces of paper, and I'm sure he did. We requested to have pulled 45 personnel files, all Marine Corps, Navy, or Coast Guard, because those are the ones that were most likely to have survived the devastating fire in 1973, which we just recently passed the anniversary of. For those of you that don't know, in 1973 there was a massive fire at the National Personnel Records Center that wiped out 80% of the Army and Air Force's personnel files from World War I through World War II. They're gone. In fact, I actually have requested a file from them in the past, like a DD 214, a discharge paper, and what I got back was a very clearly burned piece of paper, like singed. So it ruined a lot of records. In fact, the microfilm that the morning reports are on were also impacted by that fire. And thankfully, they all had copies of them in storage in Valmeyer, Illinois. And that's the only reason why some of them made it. So he pulled those files. We had some really, really interesting ones. We had one man, Daniel Eugene Ferran, who was a Marine who grew up in Pennsylvania. He lived in Reading later on in his life. He was in the Marines from 1918 to 1950. He was a warrant officer, so a bit of a unicorn, and he never got a bad report. Every time he was evaluated, every single year, everyone was like, he's great, we love him, we should promote him. And so that was really cool. He also got commended for running into a burning barrack in Boston on the 4th floor and single-handedly controlling a fire before the Boston Fire Department showed up. Types of things that I would not have known if I didn't have his personnel file. Also some really, really interesting, medical records, also some stuff that helped. There was one in particular individual whose daughter I spoke with who said that her father really struggled after the war. He also had stomach problems, and so that's how he passed. He passed in their home, a stomach ulcer that had ruptured. Very sad. Well, his personnel file indicated that he had been struggling with psychiatric stuff before he was even discharged. So that helped bring some closure to that story for that family, right? So really, really interesting stuff from those personnel files. And also a few also lovely, we got a few women's files. Of course, the 3 of the women whose files I requested to have pulled, 2 of them were non-archival. I did not know that the women had been discharged after 1962, so they couldn't pull them. But we did get one, so that was really cool. She was a wave, and she was formally reprimanded by her commanding officer for getting married right after her specialist training. She ended up not getting in trouble for it, though. Apparently, that was a very common practice. We only know that because her testimony was in her file to explain her defense for her breach of protocol. So I didn't know that. I guess you weren't supposed to get married if you were a woman in the service during training specifically. So that's what I can tell you off the top of my head about the trip. I have in here, I have just some bits and bobs. So just as an example, the numbers that you see next to, so you'll see like F45, that means February 1945, / and then a number, that's a real number. So the microfilm in the archive is organized there in drawers, and you find the right range, you open it up for the month, and you look for the number range in which your number appears. So they're not like there's not an individual reel for every single one. Yours is on a reel. It might be at the very end, it might be in the beginning, you never know. But this is what the punch card looks like that you read the number off of. So for this particular unit, the let's see, the 87th Engineer Battalion Heavy Pontoon, for February, your number is 25676. So you find February 1944, and you look for your range, you open up the drawer, they're very long, very, very long. I was always scared they were gonna fall. And you pull out your box, and then you load it up. And then one other thing I will pass around that I probably should have already. One of our KIA'd, one of the very helpful staff members there, who was also very curious since this individual, Warren Dabney Goodwin, was transferred from the Royal Canadian Air Force to the US Army Air Force because he was very excited to get into the war, and he wanted to go before we entered. And now I can't find his thing. Maybe it's not in this bag. Oh, here it is. Here it is. He was training as a flight officer when he was killed, and we only know that because the archival staff were curious about him, and so they tried to see if he had any flight records. He was training in B-24s when he died in a crash in California. So it was really cool. He was kind of one of those weird, like enlisted men who gets flight training. So So yeah, so if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But that's what I did like all last week and it was awesome and I wanna go back. I miss it. But I'm tired, but I miss it. So yeah.
Can I ask you, do families
Sorry,
ever?
ma'am, sorry, I just wanna see if the board has any other
Oh,
questions
okay.
first, it's okay.
So I feel-
Yeah, oh, no, it's okay.
Easy access.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. Yes, Mark.
Yes, sir. What is kind of your grand plan here?
So I kind of only recently came to this conclusion. My plan is to write a book for every year of the war. My hope is to have the first one out around this time next year, since I'm gonna be working on this for my senior thesis, since my advisor at my college has approved it. So the first one will be 1939 to 1941, because of course our Holocaust survivors, the war starts right there for them. You know, they don't wait. And that'll be a nice way for me to get into it too, because it's not as intense on like ground action, because we're not in it yet. On the ground at least. I mean, we have one Canadian, he's not in it yet though, so we have one Brit, he's not in it yet. So it'll be a lot about we have one guy who ended up in the Russian army, so that'll be him pretty much. That'll be his show. But I don't even really know to what extent he was with them. I've had a hard time finding out since I have to transliterate his name in English Latin characters to Cyrillic characters in search, and so it's a little messy, but that's the assumption, my hope, my plan. So then that means there will be a book for 1942, for 1943, for 44, for 45, and maybe if it necessitates it, a post-war addendum can be added to the 45, or there will just be a separate companion, I guess. That's the hope. But I also am hoping to put limited parts of my writing online for people to see. I also do all my work, I never charge relatives or anything for anything I do for them. So, and I am a firm believer that I do not want any of, like, I want to put the morning reports I digitized up for people to see, because it costs me hundreds of dollars to go hire someone to get them for me, because sometimes I have to do that. I don't think that's okay. I understand that that's how people make a living, that's fine, I have no quarrel with them, but I don't think it should be hidden behind a paywall, so that makes it harder, right? But I do have a website and I will start putting stuff up there in bits and bobs, and obviously I want to make a way for people to access the database of files I have on every individual. I just don't know how that will happen, so.
And maybe there's a way at least to monetize it so that you're not out the money.
That's what I was speaking with my boyfriend after we got all the personnel files. Some of them are very small, some of them are massive, like the guy from 1918 to 1950 in the Marines, that was like a 300-page file. But I was saying it might be something that I could put together for relatives. If a relative wants me to hire someone to go pull their file, they can pay me just the cost that I pay to get the file, and nothing more and nothing less. That might be a good way for all of us to benefit, right? Because I'll have the information and so will they. That'll be very, very good for everyone. So, yeah.
Thank you. This kid's exceptional. I got to know her in high school. Actually, I think my first run, through Facebook, running for this position. Got to know Autumn. Actually worked at the factory for a bit, so we carpooled. She wasn't driving. I picked her up at home. But I have a lot of great conversations about life, about school, about Reading, and this wasn't. I'm not sure if this was a thought in her head then, because we didn't discuss it.
No, it
So
wasn't.
so if anyone's watching, this kid's unbelievable.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. And you said this is your mother.
These are my moms, right here, Carol and Judy.
You should be exceptionally proud of your daughter, because at her age, I'd expect her to be doing TikTok and playing Fortnite and doing
I
some.
I do.
See, well, all right, I'm half right there.
Balance, you know?
But yeah, like, I've been interviewing dozens of people across 3 states for the last month for various job positions. And if someone with her enthusiasm was, was actually applying, I mean, it'd be a no-brainer for me. But I've just seen a generation of people that don't want to do the work. And she actually is doing the work as well as everything else that's asked of her and not asked of her. So, yeah, I would like to think that you're extremely proud of her and she's going places.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you for sharing this with us. This is really remarkable. I've been following some of your trip on Facebook, and I'm glad you really enjoyed it. Sounds like it was wonderful, and it's very, very impressive. So, wishing you all the best.
Thank you. I hope to also, I'll have more stuff on Facebook and stuff, as I still have to go through everything. You know, I've like unofficially gone through everything as it was on the microfilm reader in front of me, but I have to go through and edit it all, and that's the fun part, you know. But once I get more, I'll have more stuff too to put online for people.
And moms, did you wanna come up, or did you wanna ask, if you wanna come up to the podium and ask your question?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, introduce yourself, please, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the personnel folders. Do families get to see that stuff? I mean, there was so much interesting stuff in those folders. And I thought, I wonder if families had any idea.
They exist.
How much, I just, as an aside, I've been so impressed by the records the military keeps for soldiers. I mean, it's really amazing. It says, they had 17 cents and $1 in their pocket. And but it makes me feel like they're not just cannon fodder. Those guys who went to Normandy, the Army
They knew where they were.
had respect and for them anyway. So, but I wonder if their families have any idea about this stuff. And also, I expect someday she'll be on like CNN or someplace as the military expert. They call it.
Oh gosh,
We won't get
yeah.
to see it, but
Like the
like David Beschloss.
like the military expert that the NBC radio called in when the reports for Normandy were breaking. He just had to say the same thing over and over and over again because military experts cannot forecast a military operation ongoing. No, to answer your question, it's kind of hard to know because family members tend to, I think, have some idea that somewhere in the world there's something on their parent, but I think for whatever reason, and I see this all the time, so there's the National Archives has a website forum that is kind of a partnered with it called History Hub. I both love it and hate it because every time you go to it, half the most recent posts are, do you have anything on my dad? No name. But it's like, yes, we do. We can't tell you it right here, and so I think that part of the problem is people ask in the wrong places. People will go to the World War II Museum, the National World War II Museum, and say, you must have something on my dad, right? No, we don't have anything on your dad. Sometimes people will go to a town hall. That's probably the best place to ask first because they might actually have something. But people will it both breaks my heart and makes me happy when people ask me, do you know how I can get in touch with my VFW? Because they think I'm the person to ask, and I have to look it up too. But I can tell them.
You call that guy.
Right here, yeah.
Give you a stack of business cards.
Right, yeah, exactly. But it is, people, I don't think people know where to ask. I think that too, the National Archives have been fighting for a very long time to increase accessibility to the archives themselves because I had to go to St. Louis, Missouri to do this. That's insane. To expect someone to, and then to expect someone to have the initiative, right? How many people will say to me, I've lost count of the amount of people say, oh, my dad was in World War II, and that's all I hear from them. And I'm like, I wanna know, tell me. Or the amount of people who I will share information with them on the relative that I have, and then I don't hear anything from them. because it leaves their mind. It's okay, they move on. But what if it was right there for them? What if they could just find it? I mean, like that, I think like that is the crux of what you're getting at there. And also, personnel files are insanely difficult to get. We had to fill out, I did it for him, but I love him very much. He did a lot of hard work when we were at the archives. You have to fill out, I actually have one. This is what you have to fill out, this entire page, just to request one record. They might not even have it. And this is one they didn't. I filled out all this information, where he was born, his social security number, his service number, where he died, his date of death, where he was upon entering the service, his date of enlistment, his date of discharge. Non-archival. They just handed it back to my boyfriend. Non-archival, sorry. He retired November 1st, 1963. We can't pull it for you. You know, I had to do that 45 times. And so some relatives see this and they don't even know how to find this form in the first place. Sometimes they don't even put it on the website. Love the archives for that. And then they have to fill this whole thing out, and then it takes months for them to hear back. Sometimes I'm young, and sometimes I forget that I sent a request in and I hear back about it like 3 months later. For someone who's older, I wouldn't be surprised if someone sends me an invoice, like an older person an invoice, which is what they do. They'll send you an invoice for it. And then you'll get it like 3 months after you return the invoice. This is a scam. Delete. No, seriously, I mean, like, and so I think that's part of the problem. People don't know how to get them, and they're hard to get, and they take forever to get, and at that point, do you really want them? What if it's just 30 pages, which is some of those guys, that's what it was. It was like a service book, a picture. It's always a mugshot picture, I love that. They're like standing by a lineup, and they're holding their serial number, and they're just smug. And it's like stamped, you know, and that's it. Some of them are really interesting, some of them are just run-of-the-mill. So, sorry for the long-winded answer, but that's, I'm passionate about it. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing these stories. I think it can be difficult to even wrap our brains around the enormity of events like this and individual sacrifices like this. And I know for me, hearing the stories that you've told at the Memorial Day services over the last couple of years really brought it home, made me think of, veterans in my own family and their stories. I know also sometimes for families, it can take a while to even kind of feel emotionally ready to make those inquiries. And, growing up, kind of with the specter of an uncle who had been killed less than 10 years before I was born in Vietnam, I remember, years of just not being able to talk about it in our family because of the pain that, everyone brought to everyone. And so, by sharing this with us and with the community, you're doing great work. So
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank
and please keep us updated. We'd love to hear more as the books are ready and as the research continues.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
awesome. Thanks. Well done. And thank you, Will.
Thank you.
All right. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
2020.
Okay, so moving on to our next item, which is a discussion on the special committee for charter review. And so there's a memo from Ivrea starting on page 5 of the packet, and just by way of a little bit of background, and then I'll turn it over to Ivrea to correct anything and expand anything. We're at a point now where we need, we're approaching the 10-year anniversary of the Charter Review Committee appointment. And so by September 13th of this year, we need to appoint a Charter Review Committee that is comprised of, I believe, 9 members. Town meeting moderator, 3 representatives appointed by the town meeting moderator, and then 1 representative each from the 4 elected boards. So select board, Board of Library Trustees, School Committee, and RMLD Board of Commissioners. And as Ivrea's memo explains, the kind of path for charter amendments can either go through a special act at the state legislature or home rule revision and amendment. And with that, Ivrea, I'd like to kind of just turn it over to you to walk us through kind of how those paths diverge and what we need to do next to stay on top of this immediate deadline coming up in September and anything that is triggered in terms of a timeline by the appointment of that committee.
Absolutely. So I did throw together just a few quick slides. I thought it might be helpful to organize this conversation and to just give a quick update on where we stand. So thank you, Caitlin or Fidel, whoever's managing the slides. So like Jackie said, section 4.13 of the charter says that every 10 years a special committee must be established. And the purpose of this committee is to make a report with recommendations to town meeting concerning any proposed amendments that the committee deems necessary or desirable to the charter. And for just a little bit by way of background, the charter in 2013 did not include this provision. This was a provision that was added, but on the request of town meeting, the moderator created a charter review committee. And so this is the first time that we are working under section 4.13. It is new as of 2015. Great, Caitlin. Like Jackie said, the committee must consist of 9 members as outlined in section 4.13. She did a perfect job of outlining that. The moderator, then the select board, school committee, board of library trustees, the municipal light board, all get to appoint someone, either one of their own members or a designee. The bylaw committee also has a member, and then 3 town meeting members appointed by the moderator. The last charter review committee was created, there's a typo, was created on September 16th of 2013. And so the deadline that is pressing for us here is that by September 16th of 2023, we need to have created our committee. Just by way of background, it did take 15 months from the creation of the 2013 committee for the proposed amendments to be adopted. They came into fruition in April of 2015. And there are 3 options for revising a charter. You can do it through a special act of the legislature, you can do it through a home rule revision process, and the home rule amendment process. So for the special act of the legislature, this is a very common way that charters are amended. It can be used to amend any provision of the charter. There's no limitation. As you may recall, at the last special town meeting in November of 2022, Article 11 sought to amend the Board of Health membership. So this isn't something that the town is unfamiliar with. You have used this process in the past. What is required is a town meeting vote, legislative approval, and potentially local acceptance. It depends on the scope of the revisions. Sometimes the legislature likes to see a ballot vote, sometimes they don't. With the Board of Health article, we were not required to put it to a ballot. The issue with this option is around control. So there's a potential for denial. The legislature can always say no, or they could request amendments and send it back to the town. The town itself doesn't have as much control as they would through the home rule process. Caitlin, yeah, okay. So then there are 2 options under home rule. There's a home rule revision process and a home rule amendment process. The revision process, which is much more extensive, and I'll talk about in a second, can be used to revise any provision of the charter. There's no limitations. The charter amendment process, which is far simpler and more common in Massachusetts nowadays, cannot be used to change the composition, mode of election or appointment, or terms of office of the legislative body. Here that would be town meeting. the Board of Selectmen, or the town manager. So when you are looking at the various options, it's important to understand whether you're looking at a revision or an amendment and follow the proper path. So as I'll talk about in just one second, I don't envision that the Reading will elect to use the revision process. It is very intensive. However, I'll just fly through very quickly what that process looks like. It needs to start with a petition signed by 15% of the voters. The petition basically says that they want to revise the charter. Then a ballot has to be drawn up seeking to ask the town whether they want to amend the charter, and if so, to elect a charter commission. If the votes are both in the positive and a charter commission is elected, then 5K is credited to the commission. They have to have public hearings, reports, submittal to the Attorney General's office. Within 18 months of election, a final report goes to the select board, and then the select board will place it on the ballot. There has to be a report distributed to each residence with a registered voter, and then the vote occurs. So this is a very extensive process involving 2 ballot questions, the creation of a charter commission. It's a process that typically is not used nowadays. Yeah, and like I said, what's interesting is when you look at the revisions that were suggested in 2014 and adopted in 2015, they did not contemplate a revision. The commission that you guys are going to vote to designate a member to sit on really talks about making reports and recommendations. It doesn't talk about initiating the petition process. Thank you, Caitlin, next slide. So the Home Rule Amendment process, as we discussed, it is limited. So it's really important to understand what the goals of the revision are and to understand whether this is an option for you. But basically it can happen by town meeting, can propose a revision, or the town manager, the select board, a member of the select board, or on petition of 10 residents. They will file the suggested amendments with the town clerk. There has to be a hearing within 4 months. And then town meeting has to act within 6 months. On a 2/3 vote, it gets sent to the Attorney General, who has to review it. She looks at it, makes sure that there's no conflict with state law. Assuming there's no conflict with state law, she authorizes it to be added to the ballot, and it goes to the voters for approval. The election has to be held within 2 months of the order from town meeting. So it is a pretty quick process once the amendments are finally submitted, but there are some steps that we would have to take. Okay. So I think it's also important to look at what we did last time in 2013. So in 2013, the Charter Review Committee was created. They held about 25 meetings and public hearings. They created a charter translation guide and submitted their recommendation to the select board. They recommended 2 different types of amendments to the charter. They requested some amendments that did impact the structure of town meeting. So they elected not to go with the extensive home rule revision process and instead utilize the special act process just for those changes that impacted the structure of town meeting. For all other changes, they looked towards the home rule amendment process and put that on the ballot for the voters to consider. In January of 2015, a special town meeting was held. The order was adopted to place the amendments on the ballot and authorize the select board to send the special act to the legislature. On April 7th, which was the annual town election that year, the voters did vote to adopt the changes through the home rule amendment process, and the governor on April 24th signed the amendments that went through the special act process. So here what we really see is that the Charter Review Committee sat down, thought critically about what amendments needed to occur and what the best path forward was for the town at that time, deciding that using the special act and home rule amendment process was ideal. Okay. I think that's it, yeah. So Jackie did ask, what are our deadlines? The most critical deadline is the September 16th deadline, making sure that we have designees from all of the elected bodies, that the moderator has appointed the 3 town meeting members, and that the bylaw committee has appointed their member as well. That's the first critical deadline. Then I think what needs to happen is that the Charter Review Committee needs to start its process. We don't know whether the town's gonna wanna use the special act process, the home rule amendment process, the home rule revision process, until we understand the scope of amendments that may be proposed or suggested through this review. It's likely that we won't use the revision, it's just very extensive, but we don't know whether we can do everything we want to do through the home rule amendment process, so a special act may be necessary. The revisions that were done in 2013, 14, and 15 were very extensive. I can't say whether we'll see that level of amendments this time around. If there are just a few amendments, the recommendation may be just to use the special act and to forego any ballot. But if the amendments are more extensive or the town feels like the ballot is really the best path forward, we can look at the home rule amendment process. It becomes less a legal question and more a policy question as the Charter Review Committee starts their work. I think I'll pause there for questions, Jackie.
Sure. Questions?
Thanks, Jackie. So to kind of kick the process off, does the chair notify all of those folks that are gonna need to appoint somebody? That you need to appoint somebody, perhaps offering kind of a few-page document that kind of explains a little bit of what you did here? Is that, so in other words, is Jackie in the driver's seat? Is that kind of how it goes from here?
So I think that's an interesting question. My understanding is that, Fidel and the moderator have initiated that process. I know bylaw committee met a couple weeks ago, and they designated someone, right, Fidel?
That's right.
So,
Yep.
So it has started already. I think it's natural for the moderator to serve kind of as the initiator of all of this and to call the first meeting of the Charter Review Committee. Once the committee is created, they will have to vote to adopt a chair, appoint a chair, a vice chair, a secretary. But it sounds to me like town staff and the moderator have already kicked that process off.
Yeah, and I'll chime in that we had a kickoff meeting with the chairs, basically, of these committees. So far, the bylaw committee has appointed their member. The Board of Library Trustees has appointed Andrew Grimes as their member. The bylaw committee was Jesse Arnold, who is the new chair of the bylaw committee. The school committee, I believe, has it on their agenda for their next meeting. And the board. The RMLD Board of Commissioners also has it on their agenda. So that really leaves us, and it leaves the town meeting members. So what we have been talking with Alan is doing a advertisement process, I guess, similar to what we did with RMLD, where we put up a flyer. It's only open for town meeting members. Applications have to go to Laura. Alan is the sole designee of those members. So he basically appoints those members.
So we just have to put it on our next agenda, I guess.
Other questions or comments? So I would, and I know we're gonna get to future agendas at the end of the meeting tonight, but I would suggest that we discuss it on August 1st and vote on August 18th. So we have a little time to talk about either one of us or our designee. And I guess my only question for you, Ivrea, you had mentioned with the special act process that sometimes the legislature wants to see a vote, but it also, when and how would we sort of know that? Would we rely on our delegation or?
Exactly. So once we understand the scope of the amendments that are going to be proposed through the special act process, we would want to speak to our legislative delegation to understand that it really is going to depend a lot on what changes are being requested. And also how different they are from other communities. You know, if it's pretty standard, we typically don't see a ballot question being requested, but if it's something new and novel, that can trigger a request for a ballot. So we'll just have to keep that line of communication open as we progress through this process.
Yes.
I'm wondering if you want to have a brief conversation tonight about, or take a pulse of the board as to whether we think someone on the board wants to serve on this, or we should consider if we were open to a designee, starting that advertisement process sooner rather than later, and what that timeline would look like. Yeah, Chris.
I will immediately jump in and throw my name into the hat. I believe I'm the only board member that's not on a ad hoc committee kind of scenario, and I'm a stickler for trying to get things correct and fix loopholes, etc. So I would be enthusiastic about working with Alan and everyone else on that.
Thank you. Other thoughts on that? I mean, I do think for my part, it would be, I would prefer to nominate one of the five of us for this as opposed to a designee, but you know, that's why I'd like to, because it's an important appointment and it's one that's gonna be pretty heavy on workload. It sounds like, you know, 25 meetings as a rule for last time is significant, so, okay. I also noticed on the RMLD agenda for this Thursday, they don't have this on there, and they meet again on September 14th, but it might be cutting it a little close for them to appoint, so if we could please remind them that that's on their to-do list as well. Okay. Other questions or comments for now? Okay, well, Avery, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just wanted to make one point, is that these 25 meetings were all open meetings. Transparency was key for the last CRC, and I assume it will be for this one as well. So just because someone is not a designee or not appointed to serve on this committee, they should feel completely free to send comments to the town and attend these meetings. The transparency was very important and should be moving forward.
Thanks, Avery.
I guess I have one quick question, sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Iria, if this goes to the ballot in 2025, is it vote to approve new charter, or the major changes are on the ballot? If it's a new addition to the charter, or is it just vote to approve the new charter?
So it's going, I hate this answer, it's going to depend, but the way that the statute is drafted is that the question will be vote to amend the charter as provided, and everyone will get a copy of the new amendments, and it will be available at the town clerks, and they just vote yes or no. If you are scrapping your old charter and adopting something completely new, it would then say vote to adopt the new charter. But it's not a new charter if you're making an amendment versus, you know, scrapping everything and starting over. My guess is that it will just be slight amendments to what you currently have, so it will be vote to amend the charter as provided.
Okay, thanks.
All right, well, to be continued, so thanks again, Ivrea.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon on this. My mistake, I forgot to go back on the agenda to liaison reports and town manager report. So if we could just go around briefly and provide any liaison reports. Carlo, we'll start with you.
Sure, thank you. So I attended the bylaw committee meeting, what's the name? Last week, and they reorganized, and they were discussing two potential bylaws that they wanna bring forward to town meeting at some point. The snow removal bylaw, that was a citizens petition request. And the board didn't feel comfortable at the last meeting kind of moving forward until they heard from DPW. So they're gonna request the DPW come to their next meeting. And on the town forest, the dog bylaw amendment with, the leashes and the command and, being able to juggle all that. They requested the proponent, the snow rule was the proponent, that kind of instructional motion at town meeting for downtown. So they're discussing, is it just a smart growth, or is it gonna be include residences that are in the downtown? Do they get a waiver? So they were hashing that out, I think, at the meeting before that and more at this meeting. And then for the town forest, I forget who initiated that request, honestly, but it was still struggling with that one. And God, I apologize, I didn't write down who they also requested someone to come to that meeting, probably from town forest. This makes sense, to come and discuss that. They were probably the proponent of that. And that was the gist of that meeting on the 13th. And then rec committee met last night. They reorganized as well. Jim Sullivan was there and Jenna was there, and the majority of the night was spent on how to manage a pickleball at Memorial Park. And Jim is gonna work on that. And then Reading Youth Football wants to donate temporary lights again over at Birch Meadow, like you did last year, so that may or may not come before us, depending on the amount to accept that. And that was really it. Oh, sorry, big one. They hired a new recreation coordinator, Ed Shambo. So he's a new hire. I think he already started, correct? He's pretty recent. Sounds like a young person, and hit the ground running. He's done this kind of work for other, not under the town, but another organization. So he's familiar with programming. And that was it for me.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, it's been like a month since we've had a meeting here, so just going back in time, the school committee also reorganized, and Tom Wise was elected chair, and Erin Gaffin was elected vice chair for that. As an aside, I know that the new position, Sadeshna is her application, not application. We're looking for Sadeshna's successor. I believe this is our last public meeting before she ends up leaving, so I just want to wish her well. She did an extraordinary job while she was here. She was active in the community. She's still going to be after the fact, but I think during this transition period, it might be warranted, and I'll mention it for future agendas, just to see about potentially relocating the position from the library to somewhere else. But I'll mention that during future agendas. And that's it.
Mark?
Thanks, Jackie. So Recalc met and accepted the new updated charter very willingly. We set up some working groups on the basically 4 core topics that were identified in the revised charter. Those being kind of updating the whoever we hire through the RFP process, thinking about finances and financial opportunities to support operating budget, maybe other budgets as well. Transportation as a general category, and the 4th related to programming, and with particular emphasis on how other communities are successful bringing in younger seniors into centers. It's more of the kind of the emphasis on the 60 side of the 60 plus to see how to do some of those things there. So those working groups are kind of plotting how to do things. We have a Recalc meeting next week, and we should hear back a little bit from some of those folks on what those plans are gonna be and how to do it. But the group was very excited to kind of engage, to leverage a lot of the discussions they've already had, so I think that's pretty cool. Trust fund commissioners met, no major changes going on there. Some of the services that we get, such as the writing response, the costs are going up because the cost of gas and services have gone up a bit, so we kind of went through that. Everything else pretty much on track. The good news is that interest rates are high from a point of view of investment, so we're getting more income, which is great, so that's kind of buffering some of the balances pretty well. And I think that's it in terms of major meetings.
Karen. Thank you. So last week, I met with Senator Lewis and his staff member at office hours at the Pleasant Street Center. Gave him a quick update on our senior center project, and we did discuss briefly that the Department of Energy Resources has not forgotten about the Green Communities guidance that we are waiting for. He assures me they are working on it and taking it seriously, so I'm like, okay, cool. Okay. I also had the honor of representing the select board at the Camp Rice Moody event, the Girl Scouts of Eastern Massachusetts, after a very long effort spanning 10 years, have assumed responsibility for that property, and they're very excited. Their organization is thriving, even with the Scouts being open to boys and girls, and they still see it as a valuable component of their programs. And I believe it's 8 acres of forested lands, which I did not know, which is I'm always happy to hear as the climate warms. So so that property is in good hands, and also representing Reading were Brad Jones presented a commendation. And representing Reading also were Chief Clark and Deputy Chief Amendola, so that was wonderful. And I just mentioned that CEO Barbara Fortier, she recognized a number of Reading residents who have been heavily involved in this effort, and I thank them as well. I don't want to mention names because I won't remember everyone's names, but it was quite impressive, so. And then Killam School Building Committee update. So last week, the board of the Massachusetts School Building Association met to ask or follow up on our selection of an owner's project manager. So town manager joined in from another country, but the superintendent was there, a number of the committee members were there. And they asked great questions, and different questions than our local committee asked. And so they were very positive about our selection with the Colliers, and made a point to note that to our project manager representatives that they wanted Reading to be very much aware that if we design this building towards a minimum of silver lead, which is very minimum, and actually design it towards the optimized stretch code, the optimized energy stretch code, that could give us additional reimbursement points of three additional reimbursement points on a $100 million project. That'd be $3 million of additional reimbursement. So I appreciated that they are trying to address some of these challenges with their reimbursement rates, and that they made a point to bring it up to our owner's project manager. We still need a project manager assigned, so that was one of the topics that came up. So by August 1st, we'll need a project manager assigned, and we are gonna be presented with several options to choose from and weigh in on. And let's see, after that, today, you all received a copy, and we'll be getting more updates from the Mass School Building Administration. You received a copy that we were approved. Our owner's project manager was approved. We are set to go to the next phase of this project. The next phase will be kicking off a designer selection process, and this time we will have our owner's project manager facilitating that, which will be very helpful. They do this all day long. They're currently building a couple schools in Haverhill, if anybody's interested. So the Killam School Building Committee reorganized last night. Colin Nazaro will be the chair moving forward for this year, and I will be the vice chair. She and I met today to talk about how we'll work together and how the committee will meet and work with the other committee members, you know, for this next phase. And we're gonna go ahead and meet with town manager and the superintendent on Monday. So we're definitely things are starting to accelerate, is what I'd like to say. It's been moving sort of slowly, but we're ready to go. So for instance, our oldest project manager, I believe he outlined the next phase. The designer selection phase will take about 3 months, which was similar to our town manager search process. But the entire schematic process might take 6 to 7 months. It seems like this process is taking a long time. I was encouraged to hear our representative say, I am happy to try to condense that. He's like, I think there are some opportunities for us to move along a little more quickly. I'll just let you know, we do have to, although we probably also all realize that a new building is gonna be required, we will still have to go through the process of, well, your option one, or an option would be to rebuild, build a new building. Another option would be to renovate. A third option would be renovate and have an addition. So that, this whole process needs to cover those in order to submit it. And we plan to use a similar process with likely a very similar committee as the process we use to solicit and evaluate the designers as we did for the owner's project manager. So again, it'll be very open to the public. Anybody who wants to join in, will join in. And I'd just like to say kudos to our immediate past chair, Pat Tompkins, and town manager Fidel Maltez, and the rest of the committee for getting us to this point. It's been over a year, it's been almost, we're pushing 18 months since we were first admitted to the program. It's really exciting. And another component of this, I can report that the schools have hired a new business manager. That'll be a critical component of this project going forward. And our owner's project manager has a financial designee as well. I spoke to Sharon briefly today just about, she was involved in the process of selecting this new business manager. And so that person has a decent learning curve. So I see that this financial person on our owner's project manager team can probably help that person get up the ramp, the learning curve. And that's it.
Thank you. Just a couple of bits for me. Last week, the CPDC approved a mosque and educational center at 25 Haven Street. That's the former Rite Aid. They had also, I think, tabled plans for a multifamily residential development. There was some question from board members about, you know, why are we doing both? I think the idea here is, and we heard from the owners that there are plans to move ahead with at least renovating the first floor for purposes of the religious center. And if that should change, they have the multifamily background or application at least in the queue in process, and it always can be dismissed without prejudice according to our planner. We also, or the CPDC also reviewed a preliminary subdivision at 246 Walnut Street down by South Street. They heard from some abutters with concerns about the loss of trees and sound buffer from the highways, also water management on the parcel. And so the CPDC voted to accept the preliminary subdivision plan, and the plan is still subject to Conservation Commission review and a more detailed future review by CPDC. Just a couple of upcoming items. I know we're going to talk about the Dog Park Forum, which is a week from tonight, next Tuesday, July 25th at 6 p.m. via Zoom. I believe it's an all virtual event.
It's hybrid.
Hybrid, okay. So here in Town Hall and on Zoom. Also that night at 7 p.m. there's a Zoom meeting, all Zoom, at 7 p.m. on proposed sidewalks funded by the Massachusetts Safe Routes to School. Complete Streets grant on Auburn and Parkview near RMHS. And one last thing, I asked Fidel to look into accommodation to recognize this a little bit more formally, but we had really great news last week from the fire department back on July 12th. there was a man with his pregnant wife in the back seat. She was in labor, and long story short, Assistant Chief Del Signore, Captain Antinavica, firefighters Demicogno, Biliou, and DeBay were on the apparatus floor. The ambulance was on another call in North Reading, and they delivered a healthy baby girl at the fire station. So congrats to the family, and thank you to our fire department for their great service, and police department. And this Thursday night, weather looks great for a 5K Journey for Sight at Memorial Park at 6:30, sponsored by the Lions Club. So hope to see folks there. And then I guess we'll turn it over at this point to Fidel for a town manager update, which I think probably segues pretty nicely into the demo of the construction tracker.
Yeah, absolutely. The chair asked me to give you an update on the major construction projects, and Ryan is on the line as well. He's gonna show us a demo, a set of the construction tracker. Before we get into that, I just wanted to, so with the shift of the new fiscal year, we're back at it again. So we're gonna start working on the budget process, which begins with the capital planning process. We're having a meeting with FinCom next Wednesday, July 26th, and we're starting the process of reviewing our capital plans, and we're hoping to, similar to last year, have a robust budgeting process. Similarly, we're going through the process of starting to prep for town meeting in November. We already have a few interesting articles on the docket that Select Board Member Bachi raised earlier. So that it will be before you over the next few weeks. So on construction, the Auburn Street water tank, in my opinion, is going phenomenally. It is going very quickly, actually on schedule to what we initially hoped. Brian can answer any questions, but we're foreseeing somewhat of a substantial completion by the end of October. So by the end of October, you'll see basically what looks like a water tank. It is a question that we get often is Verizon Wireless going to be on the tank? Yes, they are going to be on the tank. That is confirmed, along with the other carriers that were there previously. Shifting gears on Birch Meadow, so that project is going well. We've got a little bit of a supply chain issue with the block that on the building, but Joe Huggins, Ryan, and the architects are working on figuring that out. The parking lot, formerly Imagination Station, if you drive by, they are currently installing drainage, and it is going according to the schedule that we shared earlier. Downtown temporary paving is mostly complete. There is some work happening on Main Street, but it's related to development on the Chronicle building, so it is not town work. We are starting drainage work, which I believe the businesses were notified last week by Ben, but we do expect that to be minimally. Aside from the big projects, we're starting work in other areas of town. Walker's Brook we're replacing that last bit of water main that had a catastrophic collapse a few years ago, and we have a contract now to replace the Gazebo Circle pump station, to install Gazebo Circle pump station. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ryan.
Thank you, Fidel. Thank you, board. I'm following a lot of good presenters tonight, so I hope I'm as energetic as Victor. I didn't have as much coffee though. If it's okay, do you mind if I share the screen here?
Absolutely.
All right, excellent.
Caleb, I need to make you a co-host.
I should be all right. So I decided to really kind of just bring everyone in the way you would see it through our website, just in case we have some viewers here that are following along. We open up our website here, right on the main page, and Public Works is right at the top. And so we'll entered here onto Public Works, and right directly on the tabs on the left, you'll see road reconstruction, resurfacing and construction updates. Now, this came about, obviously, we have a lot of projects in town, and they can just get lost by the wayside, or people just don't know where they are. And we just wanted to have a visual representation of maybe what our updates look like, where everything is located in town relative to other projects that may be going on in town. So what you see here is an embedded map. The back end of this is our GIS side. So we're able to build this through our GIS, and then it's a live update as far as like any changes that we make gets embedded right back into this map here. We went through a few different versions of what this might look like with myself, Matt Dean, GIS coordinator, and our consultant, Corson GIS. And this is what we came up with. We felt as though people really just wanted to see where everything was and also know where the progress was as far as, is it started, is it not started, is it completed, or is it in the process? And so that's what these colors represent. Very simple. This all can be changed and modified, obviously, so this isn't by any means finished or complete. We can change this in any way that we want. But this is the legend that we look at. And when we were going through this, we realized that this legend we probably want to be forward facing and not have to be clicked through to get to. So that'll be a change that we make. Let me just change that. So if we zoom in here, we'll pick my favorite project. I'm sure Jackie's. But we have right here on the Auburn Street tank, we have it classified as a water main replacement. Those classifications can be also be changed and added onto. And we basically have just some trackers in here. We have potential year-end date. I mean, obviously that is subject for plantings and things like that. We have some notes that we can write in here that we talked about with Fidel, and maybe we have some note updates that we do here. It feels a little cumbersome as you go through to maybe try to look here for notes, but this is another good area to have updates for notes. We can put a % complete in here, and obviously then we have the status. Again, these are very easily added onto the map and also deleted as well. And just zooming back out, if we, maybe go up into the area just to the north, some of our paving projects. This is part of the paving program that we're doing here. It's on, I believe that's rustic. I can't read that. Obviously, we have the start year, start date, month, and things that we can fill in from there. But that hasn't started yet, so it's in a not to be started status yet. One thing that we have talked about is getting information from National Grid and incorporating that in. I think that will probably look a little bit different than maybe our status that we have here for town projects. Maybe that comes in as a different color because we don't always know what the status of their work is. Maybe because it's not presented to us completely on where they're at with their status, but we could visually represent where that is relative to our work. It hasn't been added into this yet, but it's not difficult for us to add something in if we get a plan from them. Right now they are working on Woburn Street, so that'd be something that we would add on to this just because it is relative to where we're at with some of these projects. As you can see, we have some work going on Woburn Street, which is the north side sidewalks. Again, that comes up, I believe, as a road paving project, or as I put here, other. But that category, as we were building this, we realized that maybe we should just, indicate that that's a sidewalk work. And then Fidel did mention that we have a project that is in process now. I don't know why that is not clicking, but this is the blue is the downtown drain cured in place pipe lining. Very minimally invasive. It's all underground through manholes. And these are the areas where we have the drain lines that are going to be as part of the downtown improvements that we authorized through town meeting. So, and there we go. So again, we realize that we need a drain category. We don't have one of those. But again, it's the same information that we have through here. We decided to put this on the town's construction webpage, and so just below this, we have sort of written information as far as a little bit more detailed construction updates, which is generally what we have on the website. We try to keep these minimal because we feel as though if they're too long, people then will not read them. We've had that feedback before. So that this is just basically a written form of what we have in a spatial sort of representation of the construction map or tracker. Again, it's new to the town. I think this is going to work out great with some of the changes that Reading PD has also made with posting the closures for any of the roads that are closed, maybe the night before or during the day. That has seemed to be getting a lot of traffic on their Facebook. So I think that's going to work out very well with some of this overview of what we have going on. I think now's a good time for me to kind of maybe take a step back and any questions that you may have, we can kind of go through that if you want.
Chris.
Thanks, Jackie. And thanks, Ryan. A majority of all my questions and critiques you've already actually answered throughout all of this. So thank you for that, I guess. I also thought that the legend thing has to get changed where, you know, it's just buried up there in the top right corner.
Right.
So yeah, if it's auto expanded, that would make sense. The search address thing is pointless. I mean, it's Reading, everyone knows kind of, here's the downtown, and then stuff breaks out from there. So I put my address in, it didn't do anything anyway. So,
okay.
That's just my opinion on that. And I guess you had mentioned National Grid and all that. It's just my fear is that this will all be for nothing the first time that the bottom of Haven Street is just closed and it's not updated on here, and there's no, I don't want to say no notice because there's going to be a notice somewhere, but still, I think that as long as this is consistently updated, then it's going to be a success. Just like you mentioned with the bottom, you don't want to have 95 things. I don't want to look at that either. But someone has to be updating this consistently, and it's going to be exactly how I was kind of hoping it would be a couple of months ago. So,
and I think that's the that's going to be the struggle. What does consistently mean, right? So with retirements and personal stuff going on with employees, particularly giving birth of children, Ryan is down to one employee. That is Ryan, right? So I think that's going to be the struggle for us, just managing this information. So what I'm pushing Ryan for and is to update this monthly, where we're updating what's coming, and using other mechanisms for the daily updates, right? So whether that's so PD now has a process that obviously I think it's working and I think was suggested by a few residents. Ben has another process as well. I think on your work constantly is we don't have a dispatcher who's updating this yet.
I guess what I'm envisioning, if National Grid shows up 2 hours from now out front here, I don't expect or anticipate that to ever be updated on here. Maybe the police would do it for, if it's going to be closed down for like a day or something. But my fear is a month just seems way too long out, and I can't control, the people in your office. If you're down to one, I understand that, it might not seem feasible. But I would just hate to see this come to fruition, and then we're still going to deal with XYZ was closed, we didn't notice, et cetera. I guess I don't want to put a time table on it where if you got 48 hours notice from someone, it should be on here kind of thing, or a week's notice. I don't know how we would convey that. I just don't want to see the next email, the next comment that's coming. I'm just hoping to avoid all that reasonably. So whatever you can do, assign it to somebody else. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the
I'd offer to do it, but you know.
the social media's updates from Reading PD,
I've seen
hopefully
that, yeah.
is the answer.
It's more of the people that aren't on Facebook. I mean, that's a significant amount of the population, I would say, like at least in Reading. So I'm not sure if they're posting them somewhere else or how anyone else would know. So then you're kind of pigeonholed into that. So
I thought about that.
Yeah.
If I could just add to that, there are plenty of people that aren't, but
yes,
there's supposed to be a Facebook feed right onto the front page, homepage of the website, right? Why can't we just pull the PD update right there?
We do. So
I'm looking at it now.
Jane shares, so we can't have two feeds. That is the town feed. And Jane Wellman shares those updates. I don't know if, yeah.
So is there a way to kind of say, literally, hotspot? You know, Lower Haven Street, 19th morning. Low tech.
I've seen Jane
Clear
do
data.
it. I've seen her do it a couple times on here, just on here without actually on Facebook. Like you would see something on here that's not on there. But yeah, you can't have the double feed, so the police can't be there. She'd have to re-share it under the town's feed. But once again, you're pigeonholing it into Facebook. It might not display on the person's phone, depending on how it is. And for me, I have to unblock it personally. So it's just, I don't know. I think we have to come up with something that just makes sense for everybody. I think a month is too long, that's for sure. But we've seen all the comments, everything. I deal with it too. Sometimes I wanted to just drive to Reading and record my route the whole way with everything closed. But you know, that really doesn't accomplish anything other than just dogpile on the whole scenario. So I don't know. I'd like to see what we have utilized to the best that you can. And that's all we can really do.
Thank you. So I don't know if there's anything wrong with my computer, but this Facebook update never works when I go to the website. I am noticing I'm a Safari user. The Facebook looks terrible in Safari, so that's my own preference. So I switched to Chrome. It looks better, but again, that Facebook thing doesn't work. So I think it's a waste of space, but I don't know how many people experience that. But I see, so I'm like, where am I going? So construction updates is buried on the bottom. So I'm like, so that's all that hard. It looks great, by the way. It's very neat. So I'm just looking around other places. I do see it's under residence, so that's cool. It's easy to find. I might add that maybe we put it under businesses too. I'm trying to think, like, to Chris's point a little bit, there's so much going on. This is kind of a short-term thing that you might want to highlight. And I buried down the bottom. No one's ever going to find it. At least I know where it is. Or I don't know if quick links could be brought up to the top or just something. But that's my only feedback, is that doesn't jump out at me. The road work ahead, downtown drainage work, that I see. The disaster mitigation meeting I see. The broken Facebook thing is a broken Facebook thing. And the rest of that stuff I'm used to seeing. So I don't know if there's a different prioritization that we could do. But I love the tool. It's great. I appreciate all that hard work. Were you able to do that in the software we had, or did you have to go buy other software?
So that's the thing. This is built within our ISRI platform, with software that we do have and tools that we do have, and we can manage. Great points that everyone's making. We can probably adjust maybe how we find this a little bit better on the front page. We can talk with Fidel and Jane on what that might look like. Notices and updates for construction is, and Fidel can appreciate this as well, they're very hard to get perfect. And I don't think you're asking for things to be perfect in that manner. But to the point of National Grid, which I must say works well in this town, believe it or not, in regards to other towns. We will be able to get some main replacement plans ahead of time. They've been working well with us, trying to get ahead of us with the paving program. So those we should be able to have and display fairly easily. The road closures is something, or detours is something very difficult for us to change on the fly or keep up to date. And so that's sort of the thing that we struggle with as far as what do we put in here and how do we really even know what's going to be shut down, because at any given moment we might not be working in a certain area. Now we get to a water main replacement, okay, we know that that systematically goes down the road, and I think that's easy for everyone to kind of track when they're in there. We can get to a gas main project and they could be bouncing around everywhere. We saw that in the downtown. So it's something that we do struggle with. I think we're going to try to leverage our Reading Police Department a little bit more and try to see what we can do with that feed to see if we can get that to work a little bit better. Maybe we pull that in and try to do something here on what we might anticipate. I don't think we're going to see the amount of detours and confluence of projects that we did this year in the downtown, which was very forward-facing. That brought to light, you know, obviously how condensed our downtown is, and all the roads that we do have, which are a lot of one-ways in the downtown. That a lot you might not realize there's a lot, but there's quite a bit. And then we've made a lot of changes along the way to try to mitigate and get out information to not only the businesses but other stakeholders and residences. And to that point, not everyone that's looking at this is also a town resident. We have a lot of people trying to find information on where to drive through, because we're a commuter town. We have 129 that comes through and 28. So that being said, I think utilizing our economic development director, Ben, has been really critical with the businesses. That's been going over very well. Our PD's made some changes internally in their department and how they're getting out information, and they get in a lot of those critical emergencies or things like that, or just day-to-day closures that we might not even know because a contractor had to change up something the night before, and they got it before we did. And then this based on sort of like more of a macro level, I'm sort of seeing this at. But to Chris's point, we'll definitely try to hone this in, and if it all said, maybe we try it monthly. But I mean, obviously our goal is to see how tight we can get this and how often we can update it. I just don't know what that answer is right now. I mean, we will try to update this as often and as quickly as we possibly can without inundating everyone with too much information, because we do get sensory overload too. And then Karen, to your point, we will look at seeing how we get people to this place here. We don't want to double feed. We don't want to put it in multiple locations, because that's not a good management of the website. So we want it in one central location, which I think everyone thinks of construction, they think of public works. It's just how do we get people here from the front page, right? So that's what I've heard. Again, this is, let's think of this as something that's living, and we'll try to tweak it the best that we can in this format that we can, without spending a lot of money on a suite type software that takes a lot of people to run. So.
I just had a quick, sort of Karen's point about it, the homepage with Facebook and Twitter. Yeah, Facebook is very flaky at times, but I believe Twitter's API got broken, or Elon changed it a month ago or whatever and started charging people. So I don't think you'll ever be able to use that Twitter feed again. So if you click on Twitter, it's going to say you're going to have to go off the website. It's not just going to work. So that's going to be non-functional probably forever, is my guess with the way that's working. So I don't know if you can have that tab when you just did that end up being just that map itself embedded right there, because then that's on the homepage, then people can quickly see what's currently closed, and then if they clicked on it, then it can go to the DPW page that you just had over there previously. But
Or have 2 Facebook feeds.
you can't have 2 Facebook pages on the same website. It's the whole to-do, yeah. But that's just my feedback. The Twitter thing's broken forever is my guess.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. I mean, we did think about utilizing that map as, say, if you click on it and I can go back, but the notes section, we talked about, all right, do we just put a hyperlink in there or something like that? When you go to the notes and you want more notes, you click on that, it brings you straight to the actual construction updates. So we're not basically writing in 2 different locations, right? So we're trying to make this so it's as easy to manage as possible. A lot of the things that we run into, not only here, but on the website, on GIS and things like that we manage for data as for the utilities and things like that. If it's not easy, it won't be maintained, right? And I think that's generally the case for anything. So we're trying to make this as easy and as functional as possible so it will be updated as frequently as possible, if that makes sense, without losing a level of detail that I think we're all comfortable with. So I think those are good suggestions, especially the one about Twitter. I mean, I didn't realize that that's a thing now that is broken. So we could take this information back, myself and Fidel, and talk to Jane Wellman and IT and see what can happen, any changes that we can do to make this a little bit more efficient.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, you can only do what you can within reason. But I'm just trying to hedge our bets because we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we do find, we do get a lot of following on Facebook. So we do try to post, anticipated major detours or things like that we know might be problematic. We try to post that on there. It's picked up sometimes by the police. And we do utilize sort of like these pop-outs here for, things that we, like for instance, the downtown drainage is coming up. We want everyone to know, all right, it's coming up. Go for more information. So we'll sort of think about that strategy and how that's going to work and make sure that we don't have broken links and misinformation because certain pages aren't being updated and only one page is being updated. So we try to keep that in mind as we're building this.
Thank you.
Thanks, yeah, most people know that I teed off on the town in April. And from April to now, I've seen a much better job between Ben, Jane, and the Reading Police. So I don't want to say I was the catalyst for that, but Fidel and Ryan and people know that how frustrated I've gotten over the holidays for not just the chocolate truffle, which I don't own. Some people think I do own it still, and I don't. I happen to live there, but I am trying to be cognizant of all businesses downtown. So Ben has really taken control of notifying the business in downtown. My biggest gripe during that major construction as downtown is a notice of street closures to the actual businesses, so they can notify their customers. Obviously the street's closed. There's police there, there's cones there, there's trucks there, but during critical times of the year for our downtown businesses, they need notice. I can't say how many times that businesses haven't gotten notice the day before, 2 days before, the day of, and now that's gotten much better. So I applaud that. So that's been my biggest gripe. These tools will help, but without notice to our businesses, also our residents too, for major construction, right? Paving a whole street or whatnot, and I'm sure that's done. But especially for downtown, especially during the holidays, I can't stress enough that notice needs to be given. And I know we've discussed it and it can be challenging, but just respect for the businesses. They need to know if their street is going to be closed or access is going to be limited or their water is going to be shut off, which has also happened with no notice. So those are the things that I'm asking. not for any one particular business, for all the businesses in downtown and on Main Street and wherever else commercial activity is happening, but a drastic improvement from April to now. So I'm glad that's happened, but I always want us to do better. I know we have limited resources, limited staff. That translates from the business community, obviously, to municipalities, short-staffed, lack of staff, not filling positions. But I just wanted to say thank you. Major improvements since April. And I know it's not easy, but I really can't stress enough. The businesses need to know if their street's gonna be closed for a day, half day, a week. I can't stress that enough. But thank you for all this stuff. This really helps.
Thank you, Ryan and Fidel. I think this is a good step forward and, along with the other updates that we're seeing across town on kind of the, getting it to the right people at the right time. Like the who and the when are important. So maybe we can revisit this in the late fall once a construction season is mostly behind us and think about how to build on it. So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, vote to approve a driveway width waiver at 91 Green Street. Fidel, can I ask you to?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, the resident is here to explain, yeah.
Good evening.
Hey there, sorry for the wait.
Yeah, don't be. I'll be asking Ryan for the link later to attend the meetings by Zoom. I'm Patrick Sonato. I'm here asking for a waiver for driveway requirements for 93-91 Green Street. By giving me the additional driveway space, it'll allow me to give parking specific for one of the units of the two-family that is located at that spot.
Yeah, and
Any questions?
yeah, I just want to say that this is a new construction, basically, and
Yes.
the orientation of how the house used to be is different than how it is now. So in your packet, what this request basically is for the driveway to include the garage basically and the driveway itself. And there is a width restriction in our bylaws, and it is the only reason why he's before you tonight. Just so not approving this would mean that either the driveway is missed or the garage doesn't have a road, which would not be ideal for anybody.
Thank you.
I'm not completely following. Can you show us? So I see the driveway, where's the garage? I see a garage floor.
So it's here basically. So the garage is in the green line. Right?
Okay, so it's inside the 22 feet.
It is inside the 22 feet, but on top of that is the driveway, or next to that is the actual driveway. So the reason why we're before you tonight is because the width basically, of the garage plus the driveway is more than what is in our bylaws.
So the right-hand box next to proposed driveway, that's currently the driveway?
That is currently the driveway.
Ah,
And it
that
goes
would
all
have
the
made
way-
it a lot clearer.
It goes all the way to the back of the property, right? Is that right?
Right now, currently, there is no driveway, but what was existing, before we demolished the house, the driveway was on that side.
This is what it looked like before.
So the entrance,
It's the driveway on the right.
Got it.
so there's two units, one above the other, so the downstairs unit, the access point is on the right side of the house. So the space that I'm asking for will allow me to provide parking specific for that downstairs unit, where I otherwise would not have that. It would actually be shared parking space.
And where it says proposed driveway,
That's in front of the garage.
it's in front of the garage is right behind it.
That's correct.
If I may just just add some additional information here? I might be able to help clear it up.
Please.
Okay. So the original proposal for the driveway was that he would have a 24-foot wide driveway here. That's already been approved. The issue that we have now is that this is a multifamily building now, and so there's need for more space. The driveway that you did see on the left-hand side of the it's not existing anymore, it's gone. Building was on the left-hand side. He didn't have access to that driveway area, as a portion of it was on someone else's lot. So there is a need here for additional parking and stacking in this area, along with the 20-foot wide parking in here. The total altogether for that driveway opening is 33 feet. For the select board policies for driveway rules and regulations, the maximum is a 24-foot. So what's in front of you is allowing for, at this curb cut here, a 30-foot wide driveway, which is an exceedance of your 24-foot regulation. Now, PTTF, so what happens is this comes to engineering. Engineering goes through the driveway rules and regulations. We deny it based on your policy, the select board policy, and then it goes to Parking Transportation Task Force for review if the homeowner or property owner wants it to be waived. It went to PTTF, and we found really no reason for any issues with public safety to not allow this. What we did recommend in the memo to the board was that in the areas where there is no opening, that granite curb be placed there, as well as sidewalk. And if I may go back to just this photo here, that's not entirely out of practice for the town, as I believe this was also waived to do a double driveway here with a bull nose and granite curb and concrete was required. So, it's fitting in the neighborhood. We have areas that are getting concrete added and granite curb. And you can also tell that Green Street is a narrow road, so there is need for off-street parking. I hope I didn't make things more complicated, but I hope that cleared it up.
It cleared some of it. So the left side of proposed driveway, that 15.5 feet, what's that?
That's the setback. That's
So
the
that
setback
would-
of the structure.
Okay, and so that's grass or,
Yes.
okay, great. So grass driveway that leads to garage, and then driveway that's not leading to garage. Is to the far right.
Correct. So the 15.5 you see on either side of that is the setback from the property line to the structure.
Okay, so the new setback on the right, so the setback to the structure doesn't change, but off the property line is now gonna be like 5 feet. Right, 22 plus 15.5, you said it's gonna be 33, Ryan?
Yeah, so if you kind of follow my cursor here.
Yeah, so it's 4.5 feet, that's it.
So, yeah, just about. And so there's no regulation as far as how close the driveway can be to a property line, just that it cannot go on someone else's property. And then also there is sort of a regulation in there that, drainage cannot go onto someone else's property too. So that's something that we do look at. And so you're looking at this dotted line here, and it extends to about here. It's very, very hard to see on the plan. I think the colors kind of are hard to see, but it's from this point where my cursor is to this point. That's the driveway.
Thank you. And neighbors, no issues? Didn't come to a hearing?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I need to understand
no
it.
Chris?
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, the house across the street looks like it has 3 garages, multifamily mansion kind of scenario. So I guess, for me, obviously this is fine, but I just have a general question, Ryan. Why does the house across the street at 92 look like the driveway is like 50 feet wide or something? Why were they allowed to get past that? I'm just wondering.
To be honest with you, I don't have an answer for you. I'd have to go back and look at what those what the meeting minutes were for the discussion on that, and pull up that memo. I think there was because it went to a condo type style unit, again, it goes through the same process. It gets denied, then it goes, depending on whether or not it wants to go through a waiver, it goes through the PTTF as sort of like, a review for the select board. And then any recommendations that we have, because public safety, engineering, DPW, and planning also sits on that. We kind of give it a holistic look based on all of our expertise, and that's what we present to the select board. To answer your question, I don't know what that discussion, I can't remember what that discussion was. I was here for that, and I can't recall it.
So it's not that a condo that's side by side that shares a driveway each get 24? Is that the way that it would work normally?
No, it's based on the property itself. So that being said, you can have multiple 24-foot openings, but they do need to be separated by 125 feet. So leading edge to leading edge, right? So you need to have a separation of 125 feet. Most areas in town do not have that frontage. Where you do have that frontage is on a corner lot. You can go around the corner. Now, there is another regulation that pops up in the driveway rules and regulations that get a little tricky in a corner lot. It's not particular to here, but there's a setback from an intersection that they have to also meet. So if you have a very large lot, you can have two 24-foot wide openings. That 125-foot regulation, again, way before my time, was figured out in order to prevent horseshoe driveways, if you've seen them on some of the old properties. So that's sort of where we're at. That's not to say that just because it was across the street was a condo or things like that, that they automatically get those driveways. They had to be in front of the board to get permission.
Okie dokie, thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask about the process. Did this project go through CPDC? Is that what board you visited, or have you visited any boards?
I didn't visit that board, as far as I know. Ryan, did you say that this goes before that board?
No, so Karen, to answer your question, this property in particular did not go in front of CPDC. It didn't trigger the CPDC's review. We did send this to review to town council, and that was more of a building commissioner and zoning sort of ruling here as far as transforming this into a two-family. That was found that there was right to do so, so that's why we're at a two-family. That's the only review that had gone through. Now, that's not to say it doesn't go through a review, it doesn't go through CPDC's review, it goes through the building permit review process, which, again, DPW and engineering sits on for review for a lot of the site stuff, as well as a couple other agencies depending on the jurisdictional area. So like if conservation was involved here, they get a review. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it would go in front of CPDC because it did not trigger CPDC site plan review.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, again, I don't want to overspeak for Andrew, but that's my understanding of the process.
So are you intending to live in this property after it's built?
I mean, if possible, I would love to. It's up in the air right now.
Okay, and I ask about the process because then I sort of know what questions you may have already been asked. So no one in town hall has asked you if you'll be looking to make this an electric powered property domicile, right?
No, so as far as the stretch energy, the new stretch energy code, I applied for this permit last year before that kicked into effect. But I am using high efficient heat pumps on this property. I am using hybrid water heaters. Most of it is electric. The only thing that we're doing gas is the stoves and gas fires.
Okay, I would love to strongly persuade you to not do gas. The home, that across the street that Chris pulled up, that's an all-electric building. I can't tell you how happy that developer was when that project was done. He did it right after the gas explosion, so there were no gas permits being offered. And once he went through this process, working with the RMLD and getting all the rebates, you mentioned the heat pump rebate, so you probably know that they'll give you, I hope you do.
So
But also induction cooking. They have a new induction cooking rebate, so, yeah, so it's very popular, whether you live there or not. So, and the reason I'm gonna ask these questions is because hopefully if you went through another board, hopefully board members are asking you these questions, because this is the direction that Reading's going in. But since you haven't, because it's by right, just wanted to make you aware of
Yeah, no,
these
I appreciate
priorities.
that.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I'm asking for the additional parking is because if for anybody who's been down Green Street, you would realize that parking on the street definitely restricts the flow of traffic. I feel like it's necessary.
I think the curbing is a nice idea. I do see it in the rest of the neighborhood. I think it'll make the property look great.
Same, I agree.
Thanks.
Thank you for your input.
If there are no other questions, do we have a motion?
Oh, we have a motion. Move to approve the driveway variance request at 91 Green Street as presented.
Second.
Okay, so motion made by Karen, seconded by Mark. All those in favor? Opposed? We're 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Sonato, for
Good luck,
hanging with
Sean.
us.
Take your time.
Good luck.
All right, thank you,
Yeah,
Ryan.
good luck.
Thanks, Ryan. Good night.
Thank you, take care.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks. All right. Last substantive item is to discuss the upcoming public forum on a dog park. That is 1 week from tonight, July 25th at 6 p.m. As we said again, here in Town Hall and via Zoom. Fidel, do you want to give us just a really brief plan of your presentation and
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a discussion in before the select board. I want to say in June. It's a bit of a blur now, but the Mr. Stephen Cool came and he shared that the Stand Foundation, their grant process is expiring at the end of December. So basically highlighted some some urgency in terms of moving with that if we want to take advantage of the grant. After discussions with some board members, what we wanted to do was basically gather feedback from the public, from residents, particularly around how important it is in terms of our overall town goals, I'll say, or town priorities, but then also to narrow in on a location. So one of the things that we need to identify with the Stand Foundation grant is a location. We can't apply for a dog park in Reading. We need to apply for a dog park at this site, at a particular site. So we at this meeting we're gonna show some pictures of other dog parks in surrounding communities. We have a handful of ideas that I'll be talking about, and I'd be interested in getting feedback from residents and the public about what is their interest in depending on the area. I will say that I received an email from Mr. Cool. He reached out to the Stand Foundation and mentioned Memorial Park, and they politely said that's a complicated property and would probably not be encouraged to apply. So I don't think I'll be mentioning it, Memorial Park, at the meeting next Tuesday. But we have a handful of other locations that we'll be talking about for some time.
Chris.
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, I'm eager to see what will come out of this, because at first I thought it was a slam dunk for a dog park kind of scenario, and then I see some comments online where it's like flip the opposite direction. So I truly don't know how this is going to shake out. It's a shame that we didn't get it going earlier, to miss out on the grant money, because then that obviously becomes a lot easier when you're getting $125,000 and not needing to ask somebody for it, or whatever it ends up potentially being. So I encourage everyone to go to the public forum. Just send their input to the board, to you, whoever, just so we have a real good consensus without like a survey or something like that going forward, just to see where things are gonna shake out on this, because at first I thought it was automatic and now I'm not so sure, so.
Mark?
Thanks, Jackie. I think from my perspective, the notion of this perhaps moved up a little bit with the thought that it would be fully funded. If it were not to be fully outside funded, I think its priority, in my opinion, goes way down in terms of all the other things we need to accomplish in town right now. And I would be very careful not to suggest that we would be allocating a space and, you know, hey, sometime in the future, maybe, you know, we'll get some money for it. I think that, you know, the impetus really was, you know, money. And by the way, the deadline for Stanton is December 15th, not the end of December. So I think we tread carefully. I think this is exactly right. Let's do a forum. Let's get some input. I think we need to assess, and Karen, you brought up this point, what's the community participation that would be taking place in terms of all the activities surrounding it, getting it done, getting support for it. I think we gotta gauge that, so I think the forum's a really good way to do that.
Okay, so, yeah, agreed. It'll be important to suss out kind of the level of support and the reactions to the different locations. And so I guess I would just say, and as we're segueing into the future agenda items, you know, I think we should at least hold open the possibility of another discussion about this on either August 1st or 22nd, you know, maybe even the 1st, just to kind of check back in, given the short time frame. Yeah. Okay. Right, so future agenda items, it looks like the future agenda items start on page 102 of the packet, so at the next meeting, Fidel, did you have an update on the hearing?
Yes, sorry, on the liquor license. So I emailed the board that Meadowbrook has withdrawn their application for a liquor license.
Okay.
And they did so without prejudice and retaining the option to apply in the future.
Okay.
It wasn't denied.
Okay. Are the other two substantive items for August 1st, the Meadowbrook easement and the PTTF, are those still on?
I don't think they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess why not on the PTTF? Is it just that some of those items aren't quite ready for?
Exactly right. So the really one big item that we're tracking for that PTF presentation is the ongoing discussions on a crosswalk on Salem Street. And if you recall, there was a resident who came and asked for a crosswalk, Memorial Park, basically.
Yes.
We're taking a wider look,
Okay.
and police has actually pointed out that there are more potential issues with the Salem Pearl Street, which is not far, right? So it might it's instead of looking at a crosswalk, we might look at Salem and Pearl.
Yeah.
Um,
I rode down there on my bike and I had to depend on the goodness of the drivers to stop, otherwise I'd never gotten over it, so yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. What do we do is the question, right? Is it a signal, which would be a lot of money? Is it so there's the range of options.
Yes.
Could I add to that too? So, we have heard from residents on Haverhill Street crossing to Killam. Because you can do it right at the two crossing guard spots, and that's kind of it. So I guess that's what you do. You stay on your side. Stay on your side of the road.
Yeah. Okay, I haven't heard that one before, but yeah.
So it sounds like then we should move that later into the fall, hopefully not too much later.
Yeah, and ultimately what Jake Kinsella and I are speaking about approaching town meeting for funding, because ultimately it's going to be outsourced engineering.
Okay.
if I could, the Meadowbrook is, there's an agreement in concept, but the written form of it seems to be taking longer.
It's summer.
And just from my notes from our last meeting, just a couple of the other items that we had talked about in kind of near-term future agendas, in no particular order. A discussion of Community Preservation Act, so maybe that's something on like the 22nd. Capital plan, I know you gave an update on Birch Meadow in your town manager report, but I know next year we're looking to, it sounds like per the town meeting warrant article that was adopted in April, look at some sort of either, I forget how the warrant article referred to it, but it was either like a master plan or some sort of comprehensive plan. Carlo had mentioned Eastern Gateway.
Thank you, I meant to, trying to get an update on Station 1 in particular.
Station.
It could be,
Okay,
it
so
could be
it's-
this
Yeah, town
report
manager.
or, yeah, cause I know we did an environmental over there and I just haven't heard since.
Okay. I do think maybe more like September, it would be good to have a little bit more information on the multifamily / income-based relief on water rates. That we talked about last month. Other items? Chris?
Thanks, Jackie. Maybe in one of Fidel's updates as well, can go over Sturgis. I guess I'm hearing that it's been sitting dormant for like weeks or something and, or no activity or something, I don't know. I don't live over there, so.
What part of Sturgis?
The pump station or the tennis
Pump
courts?
station.
The pump station.
Yes.
Should ask, right?
Construction tracker.
Yeah.
There's a date on there. I was wondering too. I've been driving by.
looked, Karen.
You know, there's a date on there because it's been out there for a while. It says July, wrapping up.
And then just in general, I know there's been a lot of complaints about the roads being all destroyed and potholes and paving schedules. Maybe we can get a kind of update on really like how this is going, because, you know, different parts in the town, who's slated to be done in the following years. If there's anything we can do to get more funding to just start fixing the roads, et cetera, going forward. And then maybe the discussion, like I mentioned, for Sadesh's successor to be potentially not at the library, what that would actually look like if it's even feasible.
That's good.
I got a quick one. So again, an update, not an agenda item. If Ben could, I could reach out to Ben on my own to find out what's going on with the proposed restaurant. I mean, there is nothing going on over there at the post office. It's a shame. Another summer gone by. But I'll reach out to Ben, never mind. I'll reach out to Ben.
Well, our liquor license for that's gonna be coming up, right? In
Yeah.
December or something?
To renew, yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I don't know if we should keep doing that. It's nice to take the money, but it's kind of weird.
Karen?
Okay, this would be like a longer term item, with, it's on the dog category about, it's been brought up that, perhaps dog walkers should be permitted like other businesses in town. And, so that is something that would need to be a bylaw change. Doesn't have to be in August or anything, and I wouldn't try to propose it for November, but if you might wanna look into it a little bit or consider it in time for April, we'll just have to try to find some time to squeeze it in, maybe November, before time, I don't know. I'll leave that up to you, find a slot. And then does the select board want a broader Killam School Building update in August from the new chair? Is that something you'd be interested in? You can, where it's like can be a back and forth, you can ask questions, or later.
Would there be enough new info in August in addition to what you provided, or would it be more of a September?
I think September could work too. We will, we're all on the committee, everybody's anxious to see like a timeline and understand the timeline, so we'll have that, we'll be getting into that, we would have an update on how far we are on the design process, so it's up to you guys.
Yeah, I think with if you got the timeline and it showed you're gonna have like 12 meetings in 3 weeks or something, I mean, that's pretty significant.
The fall will be busy,
Yeah.
So we meet twice we meet twice every month except this month, I guess, or at least twice, but we meet twice in September, so maybe we can ask, yeah. And then I know we talked about this earlier, but let's include a discussion on the Charter Review Committee member appointment on the 1st and then a vote on the 22nd, please. Mark?
We had some discussions with RMLD. We kind of had a joint meeting at one point talking about kind of general plans and activities, how we might work together. It would include Station 1 and other facilities related issues. Can I suggest we put in a placeholder for October? And maybe we'll explore a little bit before then, but maybe invite the commissioners to join us and have that discussion, and the general manager.
Were we getting an update on the solar stuff with that too? Wasn't there something that was supposed to happen?
So, related to the ice arena?
Yes.
Yes.
In RMLD.
We were supposed to get together in late June or July.
I believe there was an email update, but
Yeah, there was an email update.
It was?
Next steps. There was.
Must have missed that one if there was one.
Oh, I think I vaguely recall, they said go ahead and do the roof or something, because.
It was related to the roof, exactly.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's where the soul's gonna go, the roof.
But it needs more of an update.
Just if something's actually happening or not, or.
June 21st?
Yeah, June 21st. From Fidel to the board. Burbank Ice RMLD action item update is the name of it. So some of the dates that are on here are RMLD complete proposal in late July, so it may be that there's a late July and a late August to the two kind of next
So after
steps.
that,
Sorry?
so after the, because I see August on there too, so, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's a September.
For RMLD?
Yeah.
Or
I
no,
think-
for solar?
That's separate.
For solar, yeah, I think
Solar.
it should be separate. I agree.
I talked to Greg earlier briefly at the break, and I mentioned that we haven't had a meeting in about a year for the campus. And he's working with Fidel, talking, and then he knows we need to have a meeting.
Yeah, and I think there's still the possibility that that's a senior center potential location too, in terms of existing building. That's a possibility, so.
It's, I mean, I'm not, whatever we discuss.
Main offices. Especially if they're planning to move. If they were, I don't know that they are, but if they were.
But they can't leave Reading.
They can't leave Reading.
But, yeah.
Oh, where you going to Reading, but maybe Memorial Park, everything's suggested for there.
Casting field.
Go to Memorial Park.
Going sideways now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Memorial Park.
Any other items? We got no shortage of stuff.
I think that's
That
January.
It does look like the first August meeting may be a little light, no? Content wise?
It does. Good point.
Great, just kidding. Never do that. Old, select boards of old used to do that.
Yeah.
Right now, they're both light.
Yeah, they are.
So we scratch the first and do just the 22nd. All those in favor?
I will nod accordingly.
That was an unofficial,
Is
unofficial
there a
vote.
proposal? Is
I
there,
think we took the pulse of the board.
is there a proposal?
I would love that.
Motion to
Scheduling, we can always do scheduling.
remove the first August meeting.
No issue with scheduling.
So are you, okay, is there a second?
Second?
I mean, I was joking, but I'm serious.
Well, so what's on the,
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, what's on the agenda is
The
really,
22nd, there's nothing.
Right.
Right now.
sorry, you said the 22nd or the 1st?
The 22nd, right now, there's nothing on the
but
agenda.
yeah, I think is your suggestion that we would cancel the first and go ahead with the 22nd?
Put everything on the 22nd? I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that's my proposal.
Thank you, Carlo.
Okay, so all those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? 5-0. Wow.
That's the most exciting vote of the night.
Best vote in 4 years.
Filing courage right there.
I'm gonna do the Costanza thing, just walk out. All right, everybody, it's been great.
Summer,
Here.
summer Carlo.
Yeah, summer Carlo.
Right,
Wow,
okay, well,
there is hope.
then we'll have a good robust agenda on the 22nd, but we'll, I think definitely,
A 5:45, a 6:45.
yeah. Well, and we'll definitely wanna talk about dog park then, cause
Oh, I don't mind starting early either. 22nd, start at 6. Bang it out.
I guess the one thing though, seriously, that it does, is that, the 2 meetings in August were the opportunity to, discuss and then vote on the charter review committee. We are meeting again on the 12th of September, so we do in theory have 2 meetings.
As long as that doesn't impact Alan and whatever else is happening.
Well, we would,
Timetable
yeah, we
for
need to have a nominee, we need to vote on a nominee by the 12th.
September.
Correct.
Not August.
Could be on.
It
September.
could be on the 12th.
Yeah, that's-
Yeah, I mean, we could vote on the 22nd as well, but we should at least discuss the nominee.
If we were the last, if Alan was waiting for us and us only, I think it'd be a good idea to have a quick Zoom meeting, and that's the one agenda item.
Yeah.
And whoever's out of town, or a
Right.
quick Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
If Alan's like, come on, guys, you know.
Right. If he's waiting on us.
If he's waiting on us, that's what I would propose.
Okay. Right? Ooh,
Can I have that gavel, please?
all right, well,
Where would you like it?
okay, well, I guess last
You
item.
don't wanna know, Mark, you don't wanna
Last
know.
item, we have just one set of meeting minutes to approve from June 20th. They start on page 104 of the packet. Did anyone send any updates to Caitlin?
No, I saw one little typo though. Fidel was reporting on the OPM that we chose, but it was written choose. I think it's at the front, where is it?
Town manager report, bottom of page 104.
Yes, that is it. The OPM they chose.
Okay.
You got it? And then, so, it was a little awkward going through this process. I don't know if we wanna change the wording on there, like, I don't necessarily know that, I think we were careful in our minutes not to call them the second choice and ruin our relationship. I don't know if we wanna edit our minutes, maybe use the word alternate choice or something. We didn't wanna denigrate them, because they were very close.
What is this for?
Town manager report, page 104.
No, like,
Gillen.
oh, Killen,
We don't wanna
okay.
imply that they
Oh,
were
yeah, yeah,
any less than,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, no,
it was close, so alternate choice. Caitlin, could we say they will not be selecting their alternate choice or something like that? Because their initial choice withdrew their application? Thank you.
I'm good with everything.
everything else looks good to me.
Got it.
Thank you.
Okay. Move to approve the meeting minutes of June 20th, 2023 as written and amended? As amended. Thanks, Karen. I'm sorry, as amended. And Mark seconded. Thank you. All those in favor? Raise your hands. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you. Motion to adjourn? Second. Thanks, Karen. Yeah, you made it. Yeah, made a motion. Yep, second. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. 5-0. Good night.